Hello, everybody. It's time for another installment of Dyer's Place. With me, as usual, is Mike.
Mike and only Mike.
Yep.
For better or worse.
Just the two of us this week.
You can make it if we try.
Yeah, we're going to do it. Give us any chance, we'll take it. Give us any rule, we'll break it. We're going to make our dreams come true. Doing it our way.
That sounds very 80s, all right.
More late 70s. That was part of the theme song to Laverne and Shirley.
Oh. I never watched an episode of that.
I used to watch that all the time.
There's actually a time when I confused that show with Thelma and Louise, so take that as you will.
I think it'd be hilarious to see a Laverne and Shirley as Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised no one's done anything like that yet, so...
Yeah, so am I. Well, anyway...
I digress, yes.
Yes. We'll digress from our prepared remarks and just go right into our prepared remarks.
Yes. Whatever those are.
So, just a heads up, though, folks. We are experiencing some thunderstorm activity where I live. So, there is a possibility the chat may get cut short if I lose power.
To quote the King of Town...
Yeah,
from
what of that I heard anyway, because you kind of blipped out there for a sec.
Oh, not this fucking bullshit again. Really?
I'm afraid so.
Didn't I go through a whole, ritual dance to try and fix this thing with this new mic I got, which I'm now hoping isn't a lemon?
Yeah. Hey, Snarb.
Hey, Snarb.
It's okay. It's only when your voice goes really high is when it cuts out.
Okay. Then I just have to be very low-key and muttery and monotony, I guess.
Yes. Monotony. Yes, Gemini.
Chocolonely.
And thanks for coming in.
Hey there, Gemini. What's up?
So, as you can tell by the background, we're talking about our favorite 80s time travel films. And some which may not necessarily be our favorites.
Yeah, I don't know if I should explain how this idea came about, or I don't know how much you want inside baseball, if any. So,
Snarb has spotted Flight of the Navigator. And you damn Skippy were talking about that.
Hell, I'm even Max, so yes, we will be gushing about that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but it is just one of the 80s-est films I can think of, and I mean that as endearingly as possible.
It is a fixture in my top 20 films of all time.
Yeah, it's just a real experience. I highly recommend. Well, I mean, we'll get into it when we get into it. Yeah.
Well, before we get into everything, let's go ahead and just talk about what's in the background here. Well, obviously, we have a flying DeLorean, which represents Back to the Future Part 2. And then next to Mike, we have Rufus! Listen to this dude, Rufus. He knows what he's talking about. And, of course, the time-traveling phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
And down at the bottom, we got, Marty and Doc. We've got part of the original poster for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Probably one of the...
yeah.
Yeah, because Rufus is up in the moon. They're sitting on top of the phone booth, and you can see half.
I was gonna say that's also the cover for the NES game. That sucks.
We're not talking about that.
We won't, no.
And probably the coolest screen grab of the Terminator I could grab from the original movie.
Yeah, that's I'll get into that when we get to that. But I had a thought on that particular shot.
Yeah. Now, question is, I'm not sure how clear the one next to the Terminator is coming through. Can anyone tell what that is, Snarb?
You know what? Let me see if I can try and deduce it. I'm an idiot. I'm not sure.
Well, you'd be correct. It is kind of ruins. Time Bandits, unfortunately, no. I've seen it, but it's been years. I'm talking like almost 20 years since the last time I watched it. And Mike, you haven't seen that, have you?
I have not, no. I probably should at some point, but I'm not sure how much I'm actually fond of Terry Gilliam as a director, because I think Brazil is pretty good. I didn't really care for 12 Monkeys, I'll be completely honest.
I totally forgot he did
But maybe
that.
I should... Yeah, that was him. But maybe I should see Time Bandits before I really write him off, because it took me 3 films to really finally get what Wes Anderson was all about. But that's neither here nor there.
I'll be completely honest. When I did see Time Bandits, I wasn't overly thrilled with it.
Too British?
I don't know if it was too British. I mean, I certainly do like, a lot of British humor and, media. It just, I don't know, it just didn't hit me the right way for a time travel movie.
That's fair. I guess, I mean, what I gather, it is just incredibly quirky, and whether or not that quirk pays off for you or not, I don't know. I don't know, Davey.
Anyway, the picture that Snarb identified as looking like ruins, that is actually one of the lost pages to the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, roughly translated, the Book of the Dead.
I would not have guessed that just from that screenshot. I will be honest.
It feels like someone just walked in my grave. Yeah, it's. I thought about putting another one in, but they didn't really come out all that great. So I was like, well, that's probably the best one I can use, so I put it in there. I figured you'd have people guessing anyway. And there's a reason that's been included.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, then we have the Trimaxian drone ship from Flight of the Navigator in its atmospheric mode. Not the giant silver walnut. And then that final one there. Yeah, that can be one of 2 movies. I'll let you try and guess which one that is. Snarb?
I think I know which one that is, but yes, Snarb, if you wanted to, go for it. I also have a musical sting prepared if you do get it right.
While we're waiting on Snarb there. Ah.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the one it is.
You'd be correct, Mike.
Well, in that case, if I'm not mistaken, that is... No, you know what? It's way too cheesy. I'm not going to do the York reference.
Don't do that. It had nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah, it's the final countdown.
Yep.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That's all you're getting out of me. Fuck off.
Anyway, we also have, of course, our avatars. Mike is Max from Flight of the Navigator. And I am Commander Owens from the Final Countdown, because this is probably the only chance I ever get to use anything from the Final Countdown in one of these streams. And I should mention just how much I love that movie.
You might as well run with it if you got it, because that would not be nearly enough content to make an entire stream out of, which is why we've cobbled together several movies for this one.
Exactly. So if you want to get a little inside baseball, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, gladly. This was actually kind of born out of a semi-desperate brainstorming session, I would say. I don't know if I should get into the somewhat tragic bit beforehand. I don't know if you wanted me to.
It depends on how much inside baseball you want to go.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I decided not too long after our last stream, which my brain is shit and I'm already forgetting what that was. That wasn't the Twilight Zone stream, was it?
Oh, wow, you're way off. No, that was when Rusty came on. We talked about horror games.
Right, the horror game one. Right. Well, we, not too long after that, the horror game stream, we had to think of an idea for what was up in 2 weeks afterward. And I was just thinking, what are some of our favorite things that aren't music? Because Rob doesn't want to crack open the Rush dial just yet. Which, that's fair. But I thought of what is something that both of us really like and wouldn't require too much research because we already know enough about it. I pitched a Beavis and Butthead stream, which Rob then decided to expand upon and make it a stream on the works of Mike Judge. So not just Beavis and Butthead, but Office Space, Idiocracy, Tales from the Van or whatever it's called. I didn't see much of that, but my mom watched that for a while. And, of course, King of the Hill, which would be very relevant because of the actual upcoming revival, which has amazingly shifted time forward, and Bobby's an adult now, and I am, or, well, at least was, stoked for it. Unfortunately, then something very bad happened. If you know the very uncool murder of Jonathan Joss, John Redcorn, which kind of blew my enthusiasm, and I just realized I don't think I wanted to talk about Texas this time. So, not yet. No, not yet. I would still like to do that idea sometime, but. Maybe distance it just a little bit from the bad vibes happening. So I think we only had then a week left, and we had to scramble even further for an idea. And once again, I thought of something that Rob and I really liked. We didn't have to do much research on, and of course that we didn't talk about already. So then, just out of the blue, I pitched a Back to the Future stream, which is in both of our top tens. It is one of the greatest movies ever, and, you know, talking everything BTTF, we've eventually figured maybe it wasn't the most ideal stream because we only really have 3 movies and only so much incidental media to go on. So, Rob then had the divergent and very... What?
Surprisingly brilliant, I think is the word you're looking for.
Yes, I will go surprisingly brilliant in this case. He decided to expand the BTTF idea into 80s time travel movies, and I realized, wow, there were a freaking lot of those in the 80s. I think we've got some substance to work with here.
Yeah. And we're deliberately staying away from any other decade, because God knows I could go on all night talking about time travel movies in general.
Yeah. Which does lead to an ironic little schism in the initial idea of the Back to the Future stream. Back to the Future Part 3 was made in 1990, so we can't discuss that one as much because it does just barely leak out of the rules. Unless we have like enough time left over, maybe we can save it for last, but...
we can mention it in passing, I think, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to tangentially tie everything back into the Mike Judge stream, the movie Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe does involve time travel.
Hey, there you go. I still have to see that, and I still have to get on the new episodes, which I hear were actually really good.
They were.
Yeah, I would have gladly researched those if we had stuck with that idea, but I still got to get to them at some point.
Yeah, it may happen at some point, so... What we're going to do here, I think we're going to start off with the Philadelphia Experiment. So,
okay.
That is, out of all the time travel movies that I've seen that came out of the 80s, it's probably my least favorite. Well,
now...
sorry, excepting Time Bandits.
Now, were you thinking that when you assigned that homework to me? Because... I gotta admit, I wasn't as into that one either as the other 2 homework assignments that I had. It's not bad, mind. I just thought maybe it had some tonal weirdness to it.
Oh, it definitely
I don't know how better to say that. Yeah, like, it felt a little more inconsistent, more at odds with itself than the rest of the films on here, I thought.
And it's definitely an interesting concept, though, don't get me wrong.
The fact that it actually has some historical basis, well, historical big air quotes being what they are, but
yeah,
yeah, I did think that was
hey Jay,
it definitely had an interesting premise to start. Hey Jay, what is up, sir? And, oh, the darn thing froze. Okay, the big draw is. Oh yeah. The conspiracy angle, yeah. There's definitely a fair bit running to that, and like how there's all this mysterious covering up that had to be done. I wonder though if there's a film that would better embody that. Again, I'm not trying to put this film down. It's just, well, pros and cons. Pros, it has Nancy Allen in it, and I like RoboCop.
And this is a pre-RoboCop role for her.
That is true, yes. Her hair was a lot more bouffanty before she cut it down for Ann Lewis.
Also, before you go on, let me just address one thing. Yep. Yeah, Jay, it's been pretty solid over here, despite the fact that it's raining cats and dogs right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said at the top of the stream, we're experiencing thunderstorm conditions and activity. So, if the stream suddenly stops, I lost power.
Yeah, and I guess then I would be the only one talking then. So,
well, if I lose power, the whole stream's gonna go out.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It would just. I will at least message everyone if it does get to that.
Yeah.
Say la vie. But yes,
anyway.
We're thankful it is currently functional. Thunderstorms get pretty wicked up here too, and I don't think I sit in the best part of the grid. But yes, what were we saying? Pros of the Philadelphia Experiment, Nancy Allen, Stephen Tobolowsky, one of my favorite that guys, best known as Ned the Head Ryerson, Come On Buddy, Case Western High from Groundhog Day. It is funny because I think, like, in most other roles I've seen him in, he's a relatively subdued and straightforward, somewhat nerdy guy. So, like, Ned just being the obnoxious, like, super pest that he is a little bit out of step for what else I've seen Stephen Tobolowsky in. But, it did absolutely, and this is something that I would say for several of the films that we've seen tonight. And yes, it is Sharon, and hello there. I love Groundhog Day so much, but I did talk about that in our top 5 movie stream. That, like I said, this is something that I'm going to say about a lot of the films we've seen, but it was very Twilight Zone-y. That is undeniable. Would you say so, Rob?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Now,
very
just
so.
A word about the lead actor in the movie, which is, I'm still not 100% sure how to pronounce his last name, but it's Michael Paré or something like that.
Yeah, P-A-R-E, but I think there's an accent over over the E. So I think it's pronounced Paré. I do not know what nationality that is.
Well, if you've ever seen him in any other movies, like Streets of Fire, Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives, he has a certain...
I was going to say, I'm surprised that movie exists. It sounds like a gag movie, like City Slickers 2, Curly's Gold, but that is also totally real.
Yep. But if you watch any of those movies and watch Philadelphia Experiment, you will see that he basically plays the same kind of character. And that can basically be summed up as tolerable jerk.
Yeah, it's like, you've probably known at least one guy in high school who was like that. That's really the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
I don't want to chide on his acting skills, but I guess he's a little limited in what he can do. I mean, in the film itself, I swear he actually flubbed a line and they left it in.
Could be. But the thing is, he's got a character type and he plays it well.
He does, yes. As David, he had a weird last name. Hedwig? No, it was an H something. Well, his name's David in the film. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, it was David Hurdig.
Hurdig. Oh yeah. I wasn't too far off of Hedwig.
Yeah.
I guess.
And it's it's an interesting concept, like I said earlier. Basically, they're starts in 1943, and he and his friend Jim are on board the destroyer escort USS Eldridge, and they try to conduct an experiment to make the ship invisible to radar, but a malfunction causes it to disappear, and David and Jim try and stop it, and it doesn't work, so they jump overboard and land in a small town, which also disappears. And they end up in a desert, and they get surprised by seeing a helicopter, and a bunch of stuff happens after that. They take a woman hostage. That would be Nancy Allen. And they are completely surprised when she tells them that it's 1984.
Yeah, well...
So, strange things are happening.
I guess the existence of arcade cabinets did not clue them into that.
How would they know what that was?
I actually completely forgot to note what arcade games there actually were in the movie. Did you take note of that?
I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't either. Shoot. I am pretty sure that there is some sort of like wiki database that documents all of the video games that appear in movies. Like there has to be an encyclopedia of that, right? Somewhere.
One would think so.
I'll search for it later. I don't want video game movies, you dingus. I want video games in movies. Oh well. Anyway.
As it turns out, David's friend ends up vanishing. And he runs into, like, the guy's wife, but she's a senior citizen now. And his friend is there, but he's old. And he refuses to speak to him.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes on, they discover that someone's trying to do a similar experiment with stuff. And somehow it's all linked together with what happened on the Eldridge back in 1943. I think the film
starts off on a good foot, but I think it's around the time when he runs into old Jim that actually kind of starts to lose me, because I don't know, the plot gets kind of convoluted. At least I think so, and B, that it's like why are these guys, whoever they are, I guess they're part of the military, like, why are they trying to kill David now? Like, what did he do that was bad? Like, is it just that, his existence is just a marker of the illegal experiment that happened in the 1940s? But, like, who the fuck's going to know that? Exactly. Just looking at him. It also, and C, this is one of my less favorite tropes in general fiction, the poor communication that kills trope, where the plot would be much more easily solved and or a lot shorter if, like, the characters who are in conflict just fucking talk to each other. And, like, why doesn't David or the science guy, whatever his name was, the guy who I guess did the experiment, why is the science guy so evasive? Why is he considered evil at first? Because it's like, eventually he runs into, his name's Longstreet, apparently. He does eventually reach the sciencey guy. And then he's, like, totally civil, and then he's like, now, David, you actually need to do this to save the world. I'm like, why were you shooting at him? Why didn't you just ask him this at first? Unless I really missed something, and my attention was a little off, I guess, when I saw the film a couple nights ago. But I felt like there was, like, a thread of logic that either that I missed somewhere or that the film didn't get upon that... I don't know. It was weird. It felt like just something was off about it. Like, the plot started out in a good foot, but then it hurried up a little too much.
Yeah.
And just got to a place where I was left kind of confused by the end.
And we're not going to spoil the ending for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So, but what I will tell you is that we're actually rating all of the movies based on the, scientific possibility that this could happen. Yeah. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. The most plausible, I guess you could say. I gave the Philadelphia Experiment a 2.
And why did you give it a 2?
Because it's just really contrived, the whole connecting everything, because this is happening with this for whatever reason, and somehow it's connecting this thing in 1943. And how are the hell are they even going to know to build something like that in 1943? I mean, sure, they made an atom bomb, but it just...
Yeah.
Radar was a new invention at the time.
Yeah, my contention, and this is going to make me sound a little bit like an unpleasable nerd, but you know how, like, some fiction goes a little too far in explaining the process behind things and or, like, gives explanations to something that doesn't really need explanation?
You mean like a lot of 1950s science fiction movies?
Yeah, the boring exposition part, I would say. I think this film needed boring exposition because I really didn't understand the science behind the invisible ship that they were trying to do, nor do I understand how someone just botched a calculation so badly that they accidentally invented time travel instead of absolute stealth.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's just, there's a lot in this film that I think just doesn't really mesh together so hot.
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
And I can agree with all that, too, so.
Alright, so it's not just me. This is probably my least favorite film of the one that we're talking about tonight, and probably the only time I'm going to be, like, really bitchy, because I actually do really like all the other films to an extent. Actually, I maybe even love them, but
It had lots of promise, actually, which is what makes it even that much more disappointing.
Yeah, that's... So, Snarb, if you're still interested in seeing it, we do not want to discourage you. I would, in fact, love to hear your opinions of it if you do, but...
Yeah, watch it at least once.
Yes, it's definitely worth watching once. There were things I liked about it. Visually, it was pretty interesting. Like I said, I think it starts out pretty well in the first half with the, fish out of water thing and the whole thing with, like, Jim freaking out and having, like, the electro arm and whatever, and... Like, I did think that was a pretty nice, almost horror angle to play up, but I'm not sure if they should have discarded it so soon also, because, like I said, when Jim disappears, and then, like, he's old, I think that's around the time the film loses me, but...
Yeah. And, Jay, you're right, it's definitely not the worst film. I've seen way worse.
It is not the worst. It's probably the least best of the ones we're talking about tonight, but
I was once forced to sit through goddamn Spice World.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted a more legitimately quote-unquote bad time travel film, what was that one that Mystery Science Theater 3000 looked at? Time Chasers, was it?
Possibly. I don't think I saw that one.
As I remember, of the movies they watched, that one was actually one of the most fun, but, like, its production values were... low, so like it could only go so far. Philadelphia Experiment does have some budget in it, so that is what that is.
Yeah, it actually bombed at the box office.
Well, I'm not too surprised, all things considered.
Yeah, it's like it didn't even make back the money they put into it.
Oof, that's never good.
A little less than $1 million short, I think.
Now, unless there was some deliberate producer's tier skullduggery going on, I suppose that's a bad thing.
Yeah. I don't know. But the thing is, it's kind of a cult classic.
Yeah, at least. And again, I can't see why.
Yeah, and there's nothing really wrong with cult classics anyway, so.
Oh, no, absolutely not. That's what some of my favorite films are. But, so again, I don't want to sound too down on it. It might be someone else's cup of tea. It just wasn't ours.
Yeah. So, moving along to something I picked up on a whim once, and because I read the description, it was like, well, this is actually relevant to my interests. Peggy Sue Got Married.
Actually, one of my mother's favorite films, if you can believe it, and I've only just seen it this week.
Has anyone here ever seen Peggy Sue Got Married besides me and Mike?
Yeah. Snarb, Jay, Sharon, Gemini, whoever else is in there, do gladly pipe up. If not, I will be. Yeah. Well, yeah. That is all I can say. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The chat is not moving.
Don't
okay.
make.
Oh, okay.
Don't make me start humming the theme to Jeopardy.
Jay doesn't remember. Sharon has not seen it. That's okay. No.
Yes, I figured that the first time you said it, Sharon. Anyway, let's just go on with it then. Peggy Sue got... Yes, it actually is.
Oh. Well, I mean, funny thing about that, but go on and describe it.
Basically, it stars Kathleen Turner and, what's his name? Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage, yes.
And it starts off at Peggy Sue's high school reunion. It's like her 25th high school reunion, so it's the mid-'80s. And
I will never go to one of those as long as I live. The idea sounds atrocious.
I went to the one high school reunion that I didn't actually graduate from.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, I attended there my freshman year, and then we moved after that. So okay. I didn't actually attend the high school reunion of the school I graduated from, but the one I should have graduated from if I'd stayed in Connecticut.
Huh.
But you know what? Everyone was thrilled I was there.
Oh, that's nice.
They were like, you should have graduated with us. So, yeah, by all means. So, it was cool. It wasn't your traditional kind of thing. You know, sure, a lot of people there. There was drinks and whatnot. But old friend of mine, her name was Carly. She brought her boyfriend, Matt. And
he was Carly?
Not that Carly. Different Carly entirely.
Okay,
I don't think I've ever mentioned. I don't think I've ever mentioned this Carly to you.
No. I was thinking the one that you mentioned at Eating Candy in Outer Space, which I believe is still on sale at wherever you sell it.
Hey, there's a link right down in the description here where you can get my books.
Wow, I can't believe I ended up plugging for you.
All right, finally, someone else did it for me instead of me.
Yay. You're moving up in the world, kid.
But Matt didn't really know anybody there. Well, I started talking, and it turns out we had a shared love of music, so we just, like, for a couple hours, we just went off on bands and stuff, you know?
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Even went to the after party. Of course, I had to work early the next day, so...
Not so nice.
Job. Anyway, back to Peggy Sue. So, she's at her high school reunion, and she married Nicolas Cage, his character Charlie, who was her high school sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they had kids in the meantime, and so at the reunion, she's reconnecting with her old high school girlfriends, and she and Charlie are actually separated because Charlie's been cheating on her.
Yeah.
And then the MC for the event announces the reunion's king and queen. One is the former class geek who's now a billionaire inventor, and Peggy Sue's the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And she gets really overwhelmed and she faints on stage. And then when she wakes up, it's 1960. She's back in her senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, there's some funny stuff that goes on in this. Like, her dad comes home, right? Her sister and her mother are there. And Peggy Sue's had a few drinks because, you know, she still has, you know, it's like a Quantum Leap kind of scenario in a way. She still remembers everything from the past 25 years. Or from the future 25 years, I guess you could say. But this scene in particular, where Dad comes home and calls them all outside. And, of course, her sister's like, oh, wow, that's the coolest. And Peggy Sue gets out and she takes one look at what her dad has parked there, and she's like, "Oh my God, you bought an Edsel?"
and then she eventually gets accused of being drunk.
Yes, which she is a little.
You know what? That is a good point where she came from. So,
Yeah.
And then her sister's just snarking and trolling on her, and she's played by Sofia Coppola, and she actually does a better job here than she did in The Godfather Part 3, interestingly. So,
Well, it's also understandable since it's a Francis Ford Coppola movie.
which, nepotism being what it is, Nicolas Cage is, of course, his nephew, was it? I forget the relation, but he's also
Something like that.
So,
Anyway. But she decides she's going to go ahead, and if she's stuck back in 1960, she's going to go ahead and make a few changes in her life. Something we all wish we could do at one time or another, So,
yeah.
Of course, she gets hold of the class geek who becomes the billionaire inventor later on.
Yeah, Richard.
Yes.
Richard Norvik.
Starts running all this, futuristic stuff by him.
It mentions an obscure fact about his grandfather that he hasn't told anyone.
Mm-hmm. That's how she convinces him, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then she decides, since she knows what's going to happen with her and Charlie, she decides to, I think, go out with this guy who's like a poet, or...
Yeah, Michael, the beatnik weirdo.
That's the guy.
That guy's a character. I mean, Nicolas Cage is a character in this movie. He gets to go, full-on Cage. It's a part that's very much written for his eccentricities. And yet, the actor, I think, I believe it was Kevin J. O'Connor, who plays Michael, he's also really freaking weird. He mentions, he yells out, he's... doing this somewhat pretentious poetry that Peggy's actually getting into, and then he mentions something about the blood of rats drenching me or whatever, and she's like, maybe leave that part out.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I like this film a lot because everyone in it is a freaking weirdo somehow.
Yeah.
It is just a very quirky cast of characters, and I did find it oddly endearing in a way. Also, very young Jim Carrey gets to also pretty much be Jim Carrey for... he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but he is very Carrey-like.
Oh, yes.
And everything that entails.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
But, again, we will not spoil the ending for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
But... as far as our time travel plausibility rating, I gave it a 1.
Yeah, this one is more there isn't really any explanation to how she traveled, and
it's like
some may
fantasy.
Some may argue that it was really just a hallucination, except for a certain thread, let's say, that happens because of her interactions with one of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like Groundhog Day in that sense, where, in this case, I didn't really need to know why she did go back in time. I just accept it for what it is, and we've had a very fun ride all throughout. So
I feel the same way.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. But
yeah, so I'm really glad I finally saw this one. I really enjoyed it.
Yep, but I will just say that feigning at your high school reunion will not send you back to your senior year of high school. God knows I've tried.
If it does, you might be a superhero by accident and you don't really know. So, go contact your local Star Labs or whatever, or Superman reference. I don't know. I got nothing.
Screw that. I'm going to go ahead and stock up on stuff I know is going to be worth a fortune in the future and put it in a safety deposit box somewhere.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do what Fry accidentally did, and then he does that great hyperventilating bit from that one really early Futurama episode.
Yep. Where he gets the fortune. So
1095. It's also my PIN number.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely implausible method of time traveling, but a thoroughly enjoyable film.
Yeah. I'm really glad I got around to it. Hey, who knew Francis Ford Coppola could direct a good movie? Which I say after he recently had a huge bomb and might be getting into okay, Grandpa, go to sleep territory. But yeah, back in the '80s, he had a lot of sauce, and I can't deny it. So
yeah. So moving on to our next one, this is probably the tearjerker of the bunch.
Yeah, well, I mentioned, funny enough, that I just made an offhand Superman reference, which was really poorly linked, but, we could transition from there for as shaky as it is.
Yes, this would be the movie Somewhere in Time. Now, this is one of Betty's favorite movies of all time. And has anyone here ever seen that one?
This one, I actually am not sure if I've heard of it before you assigned it to me. I probably did at some point, but I didn't know it off the top of my head until I realized that, oh yeah, Christopher Reeve was in a lot of other movies besides Superman, Mikey.
Yeah, he wasn't just Big Blue.
Yeah, no, he wasn't the second track from F-Zero.
Yeah, that one.
Fucking nerd. I'm just
nerd.
Yeah, there we go.
Anyway, well, I once summed this movie up as Superman and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman fall in love while Klingon General Chang tries to break them up.
Yeah, pretty much.
But this is Somewhere in Time, Sharon.
And if I wanted to add to that, juror number 12 tells him how to go back and... Wait, no. It was 11. Juror 11. My bad.
See, this is where the time travel part comes in. You see, Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour's characters are separated by almost a century.
Yeah, or at least 60, 70 years, maybe not a whole century, but a pretty significant gap.
Yeah.
The film starts out where Christopher Reeve's character, Richard, gets approached by his unknowing love, although she's really, really old, and she gives him a memento of some sort, and he's like, alrighty then, okay.
And she says, come back to me.
Yeah, that's a hell of a note to start a movie out on. And then she goes home, and as we find out, dies. So,
yeah.
Damn.
Well, then he sees a picture of her at the place where he is. I forget where it is. Finds out who she was. Wasn't she an actress?
Yes. That was indeed her profession, and quite a good one, as it were.
Yeah, and he totally falls in love with the picture.
Yeah. I actually read after the fact that Reeves' reaction to the picture in question was genuine. He had never seen it before. I'm not even sure if he knew he was working with Jane Seymour at that point. But, it got a genuine reaction out of it, which worked pretty damn well. So.
Well, apparently Seymour and Reeve fell in love while working on the film.
Yeah. They actually were partners for a bit. It didn't last, but they remained really good friends afterward, which I think, oh man, that's adorable.
Oh, by the way, it's a pocket watch he gives him.
That's right. Yeah, that's definitely an old timey item. That's a good stock old timey item to go with. So,
well, anyway, after he becomes obsessed with her picture, he starts looking her up, and goes to see her former housekeeper and gets to poke through her personal effects, which includes a book on time travel written by his old college professor.
Yeah, it's George Voskovec, Juror 11 from 12 Angry Men.
And he just becomes obsessed with traveling back to 1912 to meet her. So, basically, the guy that wrote it, who he goes to visit, tells him that he believes he could time travel through the power of self-suggestion. Guess what rating I'm giving this movie for scientific possibilities?
It's weird because in a way, this is kind of the most mundane form of travel out of all these films, and yet it is by and far the most well, actually, we don't know exactly still how Peggy Sue did what she did, but this one might as well just be like a magic spell, practically.
Exactly.
Like wooga 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 gabbo gabbo, I'm back in time.
Yeah, pretty much. And, so he gets himself a vintage suit and some 1912 money, and has a coin pocket in his suit that he fills with change, except that it's from that time. And he realizes that if he sees something from his own time, he could break the spell.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting high concept, I gotta say. A little dumb, but I thought that, like, just the idea that this maybe could work was in itself very amusing.
Well, think about it. The high concept thing works because it was by Richard Matheson. That dude wrote so many of the great episodes of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, we're talking about several of these movies feeling really Twilight Zone-y. This is the Twilight Zone-iest of them all, by a
Pretty
mile.
much. And another thing that clues him off that he'll be able to make it using the power of self-suggestion is that he finds a hotel register from 1912 with his signature. So, yeah, he actually does manage to get back to 1912.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a good deal of time. He kind of botches it at first, but then he has to get some sort of self-reassurance that, oh wait, I'm in this book. This did really happen. I gotta freaking do it, man. And then he eventually succeeds somehow.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, sure enough, he meets the actress, and they fall in love, and she has a stage manager that would be General Chang, or Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer's character is such an a-hole in this movie. Almost
totally.
Even at some point closer to the end of the film, it's like Reeve says that, oh wait, no, I understand you. I think I get you now, and you just have her best interest in mind. And he's like, yeah, I do, but you still suck. Get out of here. And he's like, okay, you suck too, man. It's like he just kind of pushes his luck, and it's just hard to sympathize with him. Brandon, what's up?
So at one point, Plummer's character goes, what was it that he says? It's something along the lines of, the game's afoot. Cry havoc, and let's slip the dog. No, wait a minute, that was General Chang.
That's not the Star Trek film we're talking about tonight. Mild spoilers.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll not ruin the ending of the movie this time either, but again, it is probably, I will just, a warning, it is the saddest ending to any of these movies.
I was not expecting it to be, I'll be honest. I mean, it does make sense in a way, but I was like, oh wow, this is a huge tonal jag. Jesus Christ. And I'm just thinking, I'll only say this. That fucking blank. Yes. I'm not going to say what the blank is, but yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, just, Well,
good news, Brandon. My blood pressure is down. Along with
I think mine's somewhat down as well.
Along with my sodium levels, and so beyond that, we have a new puppy.
Yeah,
it's a big boy too.
Yeah, quite an energetic little lad, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm getting some much needed exercise with him. Nice. When he gets a lot bigger, you start walking me around the block. And yes, I said walking me around the block. But, yeah, so, obviously, yeah, scientific plausibility rating on this one, 1.
We'd rate it a 0 if that wouldn't be breaking the ranking.
Exactly. Yeah, because, yeah, like you said earlier, it might as well just be a magic spell.
Yeah, it is a fairly ridiculous concept, but I also really liked this film when I got around to it. It is partly a romance movie, and I'm not normally into those, but Christopher Reeve was just such a charming bastard. Fuck, I fell in love with him. him and Jane Seymour are just so they like you said, they had some legit chemistry, and like, oh wow, they're both gorgeous and awesome humans, and like, yes, no, I'm totally all in favor of this, which is again what makes the ending such a kick in the nuts. But yes,
well, this is one of the few love story / time travel movies we'll be talking about tonight. So, cancer screening, eh? Well, good luck with that, Brandon.
Yes. Hopefully that doesn't yield any unfavorable results.
So let's move into a little more predictable territory. I say we just hit Star Trek 4 now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have, of course, had a Star Trek stream already, and I'm pretty sure this film came up as a result of it eventually.
Yeah, but we touched on it. But
I'm not sure that we talked about the movies in so much in depth. So,
not really.
Not as much, no. But
now, Star Trek 4 was, of course, the voyage home, and I'm pretty sure probably a good many of you have seen this one. It was the most popular Star Trek movie for the longest time. Or as everyone calls it...
More so than Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. It had the biggest box office out of the entire franchise in the 80s.
Okay.
And as it's more popularly known, the one with the whales.
Yeah, that's like calling it a Friends episode, but yes, that is pretty much what it is.
Or as Betty likes to refer to them as, space whales.
The whales themselves aren't from space.
No.
The thingy that wanted the whales was, so...
Yeah. As I pointed out to Betty time and time again, the whales were in space for like 5 minutes.
I mean, space whale is a concept that I think has actually been in a fair deal of other media, so maybe she's just using it as a general term, but you're right, the whales themselves are not actually from space, so...
and for crying out loud, they're named George and Gracie.
That's right. I forget, that wasn't like a reference to a sitcom, was it?
No, George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Oh, well, there you have it.
Anyway, suffice to say, this is the one where where the Kirk and Spock and the crew of the Enterprise take their stolen Klingon bird of prey from the end of Star Trek 3. They travel back in time to get some whales because this weird alien probe has shown up and is vaporizing Earth's oceans in the 23rd century. So you get a nice fish out of water story out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, good Lord. Like, you remember the scene where they're trying to cross the street and Kirk nearly gets hit by a car? Hey, watch where you're going, you dumbass. Well, double dumbass on you.
Yeah. Spock learned some colorful Earth language from this field trip.
Yeah, he just didn't have the hang of using it.
Yep. But,
they like you very much. But they like you very much. But they are not the hell your whales.
I mean, yeah, it's like Spock became everyone's hero when he silenced that punk on the bus, so...
Yes. And Nick Meyer put that in there because he always wanted to trash rock music.
Well, I wouldn't do that to all rock music, but yeah, punk, do that to punk, sure.
And the interesting thing is, and although I hate bringing up any season of Picard aside from 3, in Picard Season 2, the punk on the bus shows up again.
I didn't notice that. Holy shit.
Same guy and everything.
Oh my god, that's actually... Wow. I don't think I knew that.
That's Kirk Thatcher. He actually, he did a lot of special effects work on the Star Trek movies. And actually had a band. That song that the punk was playing on the bus was actually composed by him.
Okay, that's pretty great. That's.
I think it was called "I Hate You."
Well, today I learned then.
Yep. And it's funny too because he has a reaction when he runs into Picard and crew on the bus there, and Picard where he's like, "No, I don't want any trouble." He kind of gets off the bus real quick, thinking. It's like these guys are acting weird, like those two guys. That one dude who pinched my neck back in 1986. So, but yeah, that's a classic scene.
Yep.
There's so many stories about the making of the movie, but I know one thing they had to cut was Sulu's big scene.
Oh, nuts! What was that about?
He was supposed to meet his great grandfather.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember when they got through the time warp and they're like, Sulu's like, San Francisco, I was born there.
Oh. Huh.
Well, apparently they were going to be walking down the street and this little Asian boy was going to come running up to him and bumps into Sulu and he says something to Sulu and Sulu says something back to him and asks him his name. He tells him and then he runs off to go home and Sulu just kind of watches him go and Bones is like, who was that? It's like, that was my great-great-grandfather. But what happened was the kid that got to do the scene couldn't do it.
Oops.
He apparently had a very pushy and overbearing stage mother. And a really jerk of an older brother who kept tormenting him.
Oh, that's awful. Oh, no.
And they tried to work with this kid. They tried. Even Leonard Nimoy got down there and was, trying to entertain the kid. And he just could never do his lines. But they only had a limited time on location. And even though George Takei was like, oh, we'll come back tomorrow and try again, right? And they're like, no, we can't. We got to move on.
Aw.
So, yeah.
No.
Of course, my favorite bit in that entire movie is when they go to the plexiglass place to get the materials to construct the whale tank. Just Scotty acting like that professor who's come from Edinburgh, and he's like, I've traveled millions of miles, thousands of miles. May my assistant join us? Of course. Don't bury yourself in the part. Hey, Eris.
Yeah, hey, Eris, what up? Yeah, so I guess it's part of a stable time loop that they actually do kind of sort of invent that super glass, as it were.
Well, think about it. He gets in the office, he wants to use a computer, of course. That's one of the funniest bits in the movie is the whole hello computer thing. Just use the keyboard. How quaint. And he starts typing and comes up with a formula for transparent aluminum. So, and when Bones takes him aside, he's like, if you give him the formula, you realize we might be altering history. Why? How do we know he didn't invent the thing? That's a good point. So I was more entertained by the side stuff than I was by Kirk and Spock. I mean, there was some funny stuff.
You usually are.
Yeah.
I mean, because you are much more of a fan of Bones and Scotty than you are Kirk and Spock, as you've told me.
Yes. And, but, there was some other great fish out of water stuff that was going on. Plus a whole bit aboard the aircraft carrier Enterprise. That was Sulu, or not Sulu, Chekhov gets injured. They take him down to the hospital, and then they have to beam in. It's great when they meet this woman in the past named Jillian, and she works with the whales. And when Kirk's finally able to convince her that they have to go get the whales and go back to the future to save the world, she goes with them to rescue Chekhov. They put her on the gurney, and she's like, oh, and they try and go in the same room where Chekhov is. The cops stop him, and Bones gives them this whole, medical mumbo jumbo, and they get through the door. What'd you say she has? Cramps.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So anyway, in the end, they do manage to get back to the future, and I'm pretty sure everyone here has seen this movie, so, most people have anyway. They save the world. Kirk gets demoted back down to captain, and they get a new Enterprise. Yay!
Almost I don't really mind that resetting of the status quo, as it were. I mean, since we're just into the movies now, it's like, we can do pretty much anything we want. Just to say a little bit about Star Trek for myself, I guess this one's thought of as quote-unquote the comedy one of the 6 TOS movies. But I will say, last time I viewed it, I was thinking, oh shit, this stuff with Chekhov's actually kind of like a thriller at this point. Him, of course, being accused, being, that takes place in the 1980s and the Cold War is still kind of simmering, that Russian relations aren't so great. And, of course, he gets, accused of wanting to find out about wanting to steal data about nuclear vessels. So
yeah. What do you think?
There is that.
What do you think? He's a Ruski. Of course he's a Ruski, but he's a retard or something.
Oh, quote, I forgot they actually used that word.
It was the 80s. I'm quoting the movie.
Okay, fair. I mean, fair for its day, I will say.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to say about it?
No, I was just thinking that, there is some actual dramatic gravitas with it here and there, despite it being thought of as, the quote-unquote comedy film. But I do also get the sense that, they just wanted to, have fun at this point because, in the movie... 2 movies back, Spock died, and it was all serious and whatnot. The movie before this, spoilers, Kirk's son died, and it was all serious and whatnot.
And
so,
in the first movie, things were kind of boring.
I'm hearing a lot more support in favor of the first Star Trek film now, and yeah, I'm not going to deny its accolades, but it is also kind of a tough watch. So
unless you're watching the director's cut, that actually makes it move a bit faster.
I really should someday. I don't think I ever did that.
It's slow, but it's not glacially slow like the theatrical version.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, definitely something. But it does have more serious bits in it than you would think. But yeah, I hope that this one, being considered the quote unquote comedy film, didn't ding its reputation any among the more hardcore Trekkies, because I almost want to say at this point... No, I'm not sure if I can.
Trekkies are an interesting bunch, let's put it that way.
Yes, absolutely. Let me put it this way. I'm not sure if I can say that this is my favorite Star Trek movie ever made, because, Wrath of Khan is just that hard to beat, and I think that one's more quintessentially Trek-like. But, oh hey, Prime, what's up?
Prime, what's up?
Yo. But I have heard a few of my friends say that they felt Star Trek 4 was the best of the TOS movies, and I don't think I can argue that. It is just a really freaking good time. Even if you don't know a lot about Star Trek, and if you discount the fact that the beginning does pick up right where the search from Spock left off, so there might be a little confusion there. Just take it for what it is. It's just a really freaking fun time travel movie, and just really works very well on its own merits, I think.
I am actually a fan of Star Trek 3, so...
Yeah. I think that one is genuinely underrated. For some reason, the search for Spock doesn't seem to be spoken as well of as the middle child of the quote-unquote Genesis trilogy. But no, I think it's got a lot of great stuff in it, too.
Mm-hmm. But what you mentioned about comedy, though, that did affect the next movie in the series.
You mean the one where God wants a spaceship for some reason?
Yep. Paramount was convinced that Star Trek 4 was a huge success because of the funny stuff. So Shatner wanted to do this serious movie about, reflecting on mortality and going to search for paradise and all this other stuff. And they're like, no, put funny stuff in there. And it was a clusterfuck in the end.
You make it sound like Shatner was actually had the better idea of the two major parties there.
It's kind of hard to say. I'm not sure if his original idea would have been better for the movie than if someone on the outside had written it. And I don't mean someone who was involved directly with the studio. I take it you've ever seen Star Trek V, Brandon? That is,
Oh,
that's the question that Kirk asks God when they meet him in the movie.
yep.
Because he tells him, "Bring the ship closer." He wants, and also spoiler: Spock's half brother is all like, "It'll be your chariot."
Good old Sybok. He sure existed.
And then Kirk just steps up and he's like, "Excuse me, what does God need with a starship?"
That was actually a pretty interesting line. Also, Snarb said, as much as I like Star Trek 4, the undiscovered country edges out for me. Star Trek 6? Also great.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if I can call that one underrated in so much, since I seem to see more support for that one nowadays, but it was the perfect way to end the entire original series. Not just the movies, but the entire show as well, I felt.
And then they had to go and make Generations. Yeah. But I will say that
we're not discussing Generations tonight.
Even though it does involve, in a sense, time travel, it came out in 1994, so it's out. I will say,
I really don't want to talk Generations anyway. Right, so
let me just say that out of the original 6 Star Trek movies, my favorites in order would be 3 being number 1, 6 being number 2, and 2 being number 3.
You know what? Fuck it. I am going to say Star Trek 4 is my favorite Star Trek film. Let's go with that. Why not?
Yeah, 4 is number 4.
Yeah.
And then 1, and then 5.
Yeah, I would say 4, 2, 3, 6, 1, 5, I think, at this point. I would.
Yeah. But anyway, so now as far as scientific plausibility for time travel, I'm going to rate this one a 5, strictly on the science fictional basis of it, because the guy who comes up with the idea to slingshot around the sun, because they'd done it once before in the original series, was Spock.
Tomorrow's yesterday, right?
I think so. It was either that or it was the Naked Time.
Okay. Oh, it might have been. Well, how did they get back to with? What about the one with Gary 7? Did that involve any? I don't know.
I think they were sent back to 1968 to go ahead and actually observe. So that was a Starfleet sanctioned mission.
Right. Oh, hang on. We don't want to turn this to a Star Trek stream. Sorry, Go ahead.
Anyway, though, but what we're dealing with here is an alien genius from another planet who comes up with the whole slingshot maneuver to send him back in time. And who knows? Maybe there's an alien genius out there somewhere who can come up with the same kind of shit and actually make it happen. So I think 5 is a fair rating.
I think it could happen more than just using your sheer willpower to transplant yourself back into the 1910s.
Or fainting at your high school reunion.
That is true. You know, it's funny because Superman has also gone back in time, but that was 1979, so we can't talk about it.
78.
Shit. Well, even more so then.
All right, so what one are we going to... let's tackle one of the other love stories next. Okay. Of course, I speak of the Terminator.
You're right! That totally counts. That is a part of it.
Yep. Now, who here has not seen the Terminator? Someone, tell me, please. Who has not seen the Terminator?
And we are talking the original Terminator from... Was it 83 or 84?
84.
84, gotcha. Mm-hmm. If you've only seen Terminator 2, I'm afraid you don't qualify for this discussion. Now leave. I'm just kidding. No, please stay. Please stay. We love you all. And yes, Brandon, when Superman made the Earth go in reverse and was probably the most clowned upon bit from an otherwise beloved film.
It is forbidden to interfere in the course of human events or human history or whatever it is that Marlon Brando says. Prime, back me up on this one.
Yeah, Prime is our comics expert.
Mm-hmm. But, the original Terminator. If someone here... Okay, I know Sharon has not seen the Terminator, but she's seen Terminator 2, so... She kind of knows what happened in the first one. If she remembers the Terminator. Or Terminator 2. Yeah, the Kryptonian Prime Directive. Thank you, Prime.
yeah. That is pretty much what that was, wasn't it?
Yep. So I'm going to just assume that everyone here has seen the Terminator, since aside from Sharon. Okay, so basically, Judgment Day happens in 1997, and humanity survived that only to face a new nightmare, the war against the machines. And they had one man who led them to victory, John Connor. Oh no, Terminator 2 is a time travel movie too, Sharon. But it also came out in 1991, so we're not talking about it.
Yeah, we're sticking strictly to the 80s this time.
Yeah.
Plus, I actually like the first Terminator more.
So do I.
Exactly.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Terminator 2 is great, but Terminator 1 has that whole 80s grittiness to it.
Grit, yes, that is why I love it as well, because when Arnold first vaporizes back into the past all naked and such, it is just so dark and dingy and creepy and oppressive. It almost feels like another world, but no, this was just the actual LA, at least. Wait, was it shot in location, or that I don't think that wasn't Vancouver, was it?
I'm not sure, actually.
Oh, shit. You know what? Let me look this up at some point.
Nice night for a walk.
Exactly.
Laundry day, huh? Nothing clean. So, okay, yes. On the surface, it's a badass movie about a killer robot from the future disguised as a human who comes back in time to murder the mother of the guy who destroys its creator, Skynet.
Mm-hmm.
But then you take Kyle Reese into it. That dude volunteered to go back in time because he fell in love with a picture of Sarah Connor. And he didn't have to use self-actualization, whatever, to go ahead and get back in time.
No, he did not.
Unfortunately, he couldn't bring any clothes or weapons or anything with him, though.
And that's just how the science behind the diddly-do worked anyway, so...
Yeah.
What can you do?
Not too much. But arm himself and steal a homeless man's pants.
Yep. Mm-hmm. As you do in LA sometimes, you know?
Yep. So what follows, once he locates Sarah and Tech Noir, is just an ongoing chase. Terminator's trying to hunt them both down. And when Sarah is eventually brought to the police station, of course, that's when one of the most famous scenes in the movie happens, which, of course, starts with the whole, I'll be back.
Remember, actually, a friend of mine wondered why the hell I'll be back was like the most remembered line ever that Arnold did. And then when she saw the him just crash the fucking truck and kill the guy at the front desk, she's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now.
Yep. And you know, there's a line from the Genesis game which accurately sums up what happened right after that. The Terminator raged through the police station like a fire or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because you saw how many cops he took out.
Yeah, that part is actually legitimately wow.
He even took out Lance Henriksen and
Paul Winfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I at least hope he taught someone about Darmok Angelad Tanagra. Okay, so this starts.
He was reincarnated. Yes. Nerd! He was reincarnated as a Tamarian in the future.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
But that was after he became Captain Clark Terrell.
Yeah, that is true.
So
underrated character actor, R.I.P. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So I really love the first Terminator because it's primarily a sci-fi film, but it is also very much a horror film.
And a love story at the same time.
And yes. And kind of an action film, too. It has something for freaking everyone.
Yeah. So, you know, when Kyle gets Sarah out of the police station, they elude the Terminator and go to a hotel to start building bombs and stuff. One thing leads to another, and... Hello, John Connor. You've been conceived.
I kind of sort of joke that This is the only justifiable sex scene ever in cinema history that's not just there to get the audience's rocks off. This has to actually happen for a reason.
And Prime, you're absolutely right about Dick Miller in that.
That's right. Here's the gun shop owner, right?
Plasma rifle, 40-watt range. Hey, only what you see.
Shit, I almost forgot he was in it. Joe Dante's favorite character actor at that.
It kind of brought the whole thing together, you know. And how much of a mindfuck did that have to be to know that you just sent your own father to his death, but you had to do it or you wouldn't be there? Imagine the stuff that John Connor was wrangling with in his mind in the future.
Yeah, no, that's pretty effed up. That's that is some crazy BS to mull upon. It's just there's a lot of layers that film works on, and you know, it's just very efficient. Like all the exposition that Kyle's giving Sarah is usually while they're running or driving the hell away from the T-800, which I do appreciate that sort of efficiency. That was something that I didn't think Terminator 2 was as good with, but again, I don't want to dunk on T2 because I also really fucking love that film a lot too, and that's where the
Terminator movie should have stopped.
Yeah, that is exactly where I was going to go. It's like when I saw Terminator 3, I was like, you know, this isn't bad. And I'm like, oh, that's why this went like that. And now I'm just like, oh no, wait, we really did not need this. We did not need a sequel that is about the War of Machines that stars Sam fucking Worthington for some reason.
Salvation. And,
Salvation apparently is a film that, for as bad as it apparently is, it's not Genesis. I hear Terminator Genesis is one of the worst movies ever. Like, ever. Like, don't fucking see it ever. It's just that bad. Fuck it. Yeah. It's just the worst.
I will say this for Salvation, though. At least that gave us the first, you know, we got to see how John and Kyle met in the first place.
Yeah.
And also, I love that bit where the T-800 came out.
Oh, yeah. That's like the one bit that I hear is like worth keeping in that film.
It is. But yeah, okay is probably the best way to put it, but it does show us those two bits, and for that, I'm going to give it a pass. But 3,
I should see it. Maybe I should see Salvation someday, but like, I also am not really one to usually get into mediocre movies, so I don't know how worth my time it is.
There's some really stupid stuff in there too, don't get me wrong. Although they do use both Guns N' Roses and Alice in Chains in that.
Oh, AIC's? Oh, wow. Cool.
Oh, and there is one scene where they encounter an earlier model of Terminator. It's like Kyle and this little girl he's with and Sam Worthington. And this earlier Terminator, damn, that doesn't feel like it's out of some kind of freaking zombie movie.
That actually does sound interesting, I will say.
Yeah. But Prime, I don't blame you for not watching any after 3.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, and, you know, I turned out okay.
I haven't watched any since Salvation, so I made it.
I hear Genesis is the worst, so yeah. I've heard mixed about Dark Fate. I've heard it's pretty mid all for the most part. Like, it's better than Genesis. It might even be a little better than Salvation, but I don't really know for sure. It's whatever. And yeah, this series should not have gone beyond T2. It really shouldn't have.
It's the only 2 Terminator movies I own.
That's the only 2 you ever need. I mean, it has a few more legs than RoboCop does, which, if it wasn't for that video game Rogue City, which came out lately, that was actually really good, I would say that really should not have been a fucking franchise.
Yeah.
But, anyway, we digress.
Well, don't get me wrong, I actually did own 3 in Salvation for a while, but I purged those a while back.
Do not blame you.
Yep. So...
Anyway, time travel probability.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to give that one a 9.
Yeah?
Highest ranked one so far, simply because we don't know what some kind of supercomputer AI could do in the future. You know?
But people are trying to find out today, aren't they?
Oh, yes, they are. Do they want Terminators? This is how you get Terminators.
And I'm like, people. Science fiction since time immemorial keeps warning about this. Like, today, really shitty, lame, gross-looking drawings. Tomorrow, we'll be spending all day calculating pi for the fucking mechanical overlord. Like, why? Jesus.
All I know is if we ever find out that any kind of AI has been uploaded into, the military's nuclear systems or whatever you want to call them, start making yourself a really good bomb shelter.
Like in Terminator 3. I'll shut up.
Please do.
Yes.
But yeah, I'll give that one a 9 because we don't know what Skynet's capable of. They're the one that Skynet is the one that built the time travel complex.
Rocco's Basilisk? I have never heard of that before. Is it going to depress me if I look up whatever this is?
You might want to wait to look it up until he answers.
Okay, yeah. Pascal's Wager, but dumber. I don't even remember what Pascal's Wager is, so I'll take your word for it.
You got that. You got that right, Prime. All right. So, but yes, Terminator, excellent movie all around, and possibly scientifically plausible. So
maybe shrug.
Possibly. Okay. Now we're gonna kind of go off track here for a minute, and because we're getting down into like the final 4 movies we planned to discuss, or 5 movies actually. So at this halfway point, I'd like to talk about our honorable mention. So we selected 10 movies plus 1 honorable mention. And that honorable mention would be none other than Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn.
Swallow your soul. Swallow your soul. Swallow this.
Swallow this. Such a quotable fucking movie. Jesus.
Now let's go down to that cellar and carve ourselves a witch. Yes. Evil Dead 2. Only one of the most insane, and in the best way, I might add, movies ever made.
It's adorably bonkers. It is, I would say it is probably the star maker for Bruce Campbell, much more than the original was. It's like, the first Evil Dead is really weird, almost kind of incongruous to where the series would go afterward. But, Dead by Dawn is just such a special work of... Well, it practically coined Splatstick, which I don't know if that was the movie where, if Sam Raimi invented that term because of that. But It is horrendous and silly and really fun and has lots of corn syrup blood in it.
Oh, yes, it does. Blood flood, anybody?
Yep.
Oh, there's just so much to like about Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, while Rob does admittedly like Army of Darkness more, A, that's in the 90s, so we're not going to discuss it, and B, I know some people actually like Evil Dead 2 more than Army of Darkness, and I can't really dispute that.
No, I can't either. But yeah, Evil Dead 2 is just such a great movie.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it inspired Splatterhouse a fair deal as well.
Oh, there's definitely some inspiration in there.
My favorite bit being the middle fingers and the hands in Stage 5 that flip you off.
Yes, all modeled after Ash's hand.
So great. And the laughing deer heads in Splatterhouse 2.
No, they didn't laugh at that. They just puked.
Oh,
the laughing deer heads in One Pound of Graffiti.
That's right. That was in there.
Mm-hmm. That whole bit where the entire room starts laughing with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you remember with the one lamp, and he starts going up and down, and Nick's going with him, and you can tell he has to laugh, because if he doesn't, he'll go insane, and then it starts to happen.
Oh, what does his reflection say to him again?
We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Huh? And he says something after that, but I forget what exactly.
Yeah, it's definitely been some time.
That was an early version of Evil Ash.
You know what? That's a good point. That's a very good point. I guess. I mean, I guess the forces of the dead have certainly had some interest in Mr. Williams for a while, but it had a much more manifestable form in Army of Darkness. Well, actually, I sort of think that, like, while the dead itself and the Deadites are just sort of a nebulous, almost hive mind-like force, I do sort of think of Henrietta as kind of being the closest thing this movie has to a central villain, and the makeup work on her, which, if I'm not mistaken, is just Ted Raimi in a really fantastic-looking suit. It's just really grotesque, and like, this is one of several films that makes me wish there were less CGI turds nowadays, because God, so much excellent practical effects work. It is definitely of the what would you say, they don't make movies like this sort of school of film making at all anymore. That I don't remember. I think the last movie I've seen lately was Dune Part 2, and I'm not sure if I want to watch anymore.
By the way, you missed something they drew on for Splatterhouse.
Oh, what's that?
Remember at the end when the professor's daughter is reciting the lost bits, and to bring the evil into its, into the flesh, and then summon the vortex, send it back in time. Yeah, the thing that comes through the cabin door, that was clearly an inspiration for Hell Chaos.
I can see that. That's a good point.
The tree hands that come through, that's like his hands coming out of the ground.
Yeah, right. You're right. That is a good point. Shit.
I did like the fact that when Ash sees that for the first time, you actually see part of his hair go white.
Wow, I actually forgot that detail. Again, it's been quite the while, but...
yeah, they also didn't dwell on that either, because he had fully black hair again in Army of Darkness.
Oops. Oh, well.
Yeah. Of course, the question is, where does the time travel come into this, right? Now, everyone who's seen the movie knows where the time travel comes into this. For God's sake, how do you stop it? Yep. Slay the beast! 'Tis a Deadite!
I actually have a question. How do I word it? Like, was Army of Darkness something that was always planned, or
good point, Prime.
I guess Looney Tunes. Yeah. No, I could definitely. I could dig it like that. But did Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert intend to make Army of Darkness, and they did want to set it up from Evil Dead 2 like that, or did they just let the ending for Evil Dead 2 come first, and then they thought, we might as well follow up from this, and Army of Darkness, like chicken or the egg? I guess is what I'm asking here.
Truthfully, I'm not sure. I do know that the original title for Army of Darkness was going to be The Medieval Dead.
Oh, wow. That works.
But it kind of made sense that was going to happen after how Evil Dead 2 ended. I mean, Ash gets sucked through the vortex and gets thrown back in time to 1300 AD, where he's being dragged to his death. Although, you notice how it changed in between movies, though. Like, it's kind of like what happened at the end of Evil Dead versus the opening of Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, it's like at the end of Evil Dead 2, he's like, no! But then at the beginning of Army of Darkness, he doesn't yell at the sky and he gets imprisoned, and the movie just goes from there.
But yeah, it seemed like, well, this is just Ash Williams having bad luck, because it's just the kind of luck he has. Hail he who has fallen from the sky to deliver us from the terror of the Deadites! Hail! Hail! No.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's a good point. Evil Dead 2 actually would go with the idea that he was a hero from jump. In Army of Darkness, he does not get that level of respect. Like, almost throughout the entire movie until the very end.
Yeah, exactly.
So very interesting diversion of intent there.
But still, yeah, that's where the time travel comes in, and it did come out in '87, I'm pretty sure, so it counts. That's why it's an honorable mention, though, since the time travel is like in the last 5 minutes of the movie.
And I guess didn't you say that the time travel was also like really implausible?
Yeah, I gave that one a 1 as far as scientific plausibility because it's a magic spell.
Yeah. It might as well be hypnosis or passing out at your reunion, etc.
Nope, it's just a translated passage from the lost pages of the Necronomicon as recited by a dying woman. After she got stabbed in the back by a Kandarian bone dagger by Ash's severed hand.
Yeah, as these things happen,
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you can relate.
Oh, yeah, I know. It happened to me a couple times. Yeah, Prime, I'm right with you there.
Yeah, I mean, if
everyone's down for an Evil Dead stream at some point, if you think this is a good idea, we can do a whole freaking Evil Dead stream.
My God, we never actually did do one, did we?
No, we didn't.
Well,
this would mean we both need to watch Evil Dead Rise.
Which I know a mutual friend of ours was really not fond of.
Yeah.
But
so many people seem to like it. And yeah, sure, Jay, if you want to be on that one, by all means.
Yes. Yes, totally.
Mm-hmm. Prime, how about you?
Would love to have you. Yeah, shit. Get Jay and Prime on it. If I'm not sure if this is something we should save to closer till October, but I know we all have our own schedules that we run on, so
yeah,
whatever.
Oh, we'll end up doing it. We'll just we'll enter into talks after this is all over.
Yes,
so,
yes.
We know Jay's in though.
Yes.
Also, Prime thinks Rise is worth a watch, which I was planning on doing anyway. This also gives me an excuse to finish Ash versus Evil Dead.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You actually didn't finish that yet.
Yeah, I got the last season to watch.
It's a fun one.
So I've heard.
Yes.
I don't know why I haven't finished it yet. I just forgot.
That is a very good question.
So with enough time, I can polish that off and watch Evil Dead Rise.
Nice.
So, but yep, all right. Evil Dead stream going to be coming up in the future. Don't know when yet, but it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I call Ash.
Yeah, I mean, even I can't really argue with that, honestly. Even if I wanted to be Ash, I know there's no way it's happening, so...
Absolutely not. Yeah, Prime, if you want on in this too, by all means. We'd love to have you on.
Totally, bud.
All right. So, but like I said, we'll talk about that afterwards. All right. So, moving to our final 5 films. Let's start with one of my personal favorites. The Final Countdown. Which, as you can tell, my avatar is Commander Owens from that movie, if you've seen it.
I would say... No, go ahead.
I see, out of the ones we're going to be discussing, The Final Countdown is probably one of the lesser known ones. So, if anyone here hasn't seen it, let me know now.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I know you haven't seen it, so...
I was going to say... below Somewhere in Time, I would say this one is the second most Twilight Zone-ass feeling episode out of all of them.
Oh, totally. It's like a large-scale episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I mean, not just time travel, but the World War II-ness of it all, because, since the Second Great War was still fresh in a lot of people's minds when the Twilight Zone was in airing, that a lot of plots revolved around it somehow.
This is a point. I did not have HBO. but my aunt did, and she taped it for me.
Oh.
But, two of Serling's pet subjects on the Twilight Zone were World War II and the Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, occasionally he'd go into other stuff like World War One and whatnot, but there were so many episodes about World War II that it wasn't funny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so don't know if anyone else here has seen the final countdown besides me and Mike and Prime.
Yeah.
Aside from Sharon, who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, it admittedly has been a long time since I've seen this one, so my memory might be rusty and I might not have as much to say about it as you would. So I'm going to let you take point here.
Well, I try to watch this every year on December 7th.
Fair.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's got Martin Sheen in it. It's got what's his name?
Kirk Douglas.
Kirk Douglas, thank you. And
Douglas.
Charles Durning as well. All right, Eris, have a good one.
Hey, see, Eris, you take care now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wearing Hudsucker himself. I know he's had a lot of other roles, but that's the only one I can think of right now.
He was Doc Hopper in the Muppet movie.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
That was a good flick, by the way.
Oh, it has been ages since I've seen that, if I even have. I could do to polish up on more Muppet lore outside of Muppet Babies.
I got a copy of it around here somewhere.
Nice.
But anyway, so the final countdown. So it starts off with Martin Sheen, who works for the Defense Department, I think. He's going out to be kind of a general, kind of a consultant, I guess, aboard the Nimitz as it's heading out to sea. He's there to suggest suggestions, make things go smoother aboard ship, that kind of thing. Now, one thing you don't really think much about is at the beginning, his employer, whose name is Mr. Tideman, shows up to see him off. And he wants to go meet him, and the guy's like, that won't be necessary. As I said, he's here to see you off. Okay, well, tell him I said hi. And of course, he gets ferried over the Nimitz. And, they pass the Arizona Memorial, and they pass a Russian trawler. Russian trawler! What's he doing? Not much fishing. And, they're on board, and, things are starting to settle in. And, well, one thing he does immediately, which is a big, don't ever do this if you're in the Navy or on a naval ship. Don't go into somebody else's cabin. I know. I have at least one friend who served on an aircraft carrier. He told me pretty much the same thing that Commander Owens told Martin Sheen's character, which was the one thing we get very little of aboard ship is privacy, which is why we value it so much, or something along those lines.
That's fair.
Yeah. But it turns out Owens is working on a book, and Martin Sheen was reading his draft, and I'd be kind of pissed myself, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things you don't do. You don't key a man's car, and you don't go rifling through his personal belongings on a naval thingy.
Mm-hmm. So, anyway, they're bringing in planes, and all of a sudden the weather changes. And they're getting really weird readings, though. It's like the barometer's way up when it shouldn't be, and so on and so forth. And then this weird storm shows up. And they go through the storm, and all this crazy shit starts happening. You hear what sounds like screams and stuff, and there's like electrical discharges coming off the control panels, and the radar stops turning, and people are having to cover their ears, and it's just like... And then all of a sudden it's gone. Everything's completely normal. Everything starts working again.
Most eerily so.
Yes, because they think it's war's been declared. or something anyway. So, Captain Yellen, that's Kirk Douglas's character. He ends up, he puts the ship at general quarters, and when he gets to the department heads in to talk to him, he's like, "Where are general quarters? I have no idea what the hell is going on." The communication guy is like, I've tried everybody. I tried Joint Chiefs. I even took a crack at the White House. Nothing. But we're getting some strange transmissions in the AM radio band and the entertainment. And he's like, wait, what? Broadcasting after a strike? And when they turn on the radio, they hear Jack Benny.
You mean the Secretary of the Treasury?
Yeah, none other. So they're trying to figure this out. Meantime, this plane was out in the storm, and it comes in, and the pilot's unconscious. But it's a tense thing. And as my friend who was on the aircraft carrier pointed out, the way they rigged that up, when that plane came in, the plane should have been shredded. But they caught it in one piece. No, that wasn't how it would actually work. He says one of the few errors in the film. To cut the long story short, they send up some recon, a couple F-14s, some radar, and they send back pictures of Pearl Harbor, and there's a lot of unusual shipping traffic. And when they get a picture of it, they're looking at it, and they're like, that's not Pearl Harbor. It sure as hell is. And they're looking at this like, well, look at these old battle wagons here. And Yellen's like, that one's a memorial now. It's the Arizona. And they are starting to possibly get the idea they might have traveled back in time by going through that storm.
Well, at least they pick up on it pretty quickly, to their credit.
It takes a while. And, of course, all these crazy rumors are spread throughout the ship. And it doesn't help when one of the guys overhears stuff about, gunfire in the streets of Moscow and German soldiers and all this other stuff. And he thinks that we've gone to war, but in 1980. He hasn't quite gotten the idea yet that they've gone back in time. So what finally clues them in is when they spot a yacht. That's where Charles Durnings's character is, along with Captain Ross, who you may remember is a psychiatrist in Donnie Darko. Another excellent time travel movie, but one that came out much later than the 80s.
Right. Oh, the psychiatrist. Oh, shit. I'm having trouble remembering. I remember Jake Gyllenhaal talking about his sexual fantasies with Christina Applegate.
Yeah, that's who he's telling him to.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, I gotcha.
And she has a dog. But anyway, so the two F-14s fly over the yacht, and they're reporting back, and it's like, old but in mint condition. And then they get a couple of their blips on the radar, and they spot two low-flying aircraft. And when they report this back, it's like, 2 Japanese Zeros, sir. 2 what? He's like, yeah, 2 Mitsubishi A6M class Japanese Zeros, complete with all markings. They look brand new, sir. Well, of course, Captain Yellen orders them to observe. And what happens is they attack the yacht and blow it to pieces. Because they're trying to shoot down anything or just destroy anything with a radio that could warn Pearl Harbor that the Japanese are on their way. And at that point, they go back and they strafe the people who are swimming in the water. They kill one of them. Of course, guys in the Tomcats are reporting back to Yellen, and finally is like, all right, go ahead and draw them off. Play with them. And here they come screaming in like Mach 2. And the look on the pilots' faces of the Zeros, they're just like, what the fuck? And they start flying around, and of course, eventually the Japanese pilots are shooting at them, and the two American pilots are like, what the hell are we playing with these guys for? And that's when everyone aboard the Nimitz realizes that the Zeros are heading directly for them. So Yelland issues his, he's like, new orders, splash the Zeros. Repeat, splash the Zeros. Sure enough, they splash them. One gets taken out with a sidewinder, the other one gets shot down.
You know, a little offhand thought. Do you think this movie at all inspired one of your favorite games ever?
Which one?
Time Pilot.
It is possible. Unlikely, but possible.
Yeah, it wasn't too far after it. I mean, probably not, but
No.
it does remind me a little bit of Time Pilot, how that's set up.
Time Pilot only came out 2 years later.
That is a good point, yes.
Anyway, Yelland finally makes a decision to send a reconnaissance plane out to where the Japanese attack force should be. And it's like, let's find out once and for all if they're out there. And yeah, they get confirmation. Japanese task force is out there.
Dang.
So the question is now, they know what's going to happen. So are they going to stop the attack on Pearl Harbor? Or are they going to let history play out? That's the question. But as there are people here who have not seen the movie, I will not tell you what happens at the end. But you can definitely see the Twilight Zone influence at the end, believe me.
Yeah. Again, my memory is very rusty on this one, but I remember that it was quite entertaining and, a little more lighthearted than you would expect considering the subject matter. But I don't think that detracts from it. If anything, I appreciate a film that allows itself to have as much fun with history as it does, as it were. But it does have a very good cast to it.
Oh yeah,
it does. It definitely has a lot of tension that really ratchets up at the end. But
yeah, absolutely.
Again, my memory is quite rusty, but I do remember really enjoying this one. I just wish I had more relevant commentary. If anything, I probably should have watched this again to research for it. I am sorry.
I have no problem taking point on this one, Mike. Also, Prime just brought up something you touched on before we started the stream.
Yeah. Michael Paré, basically, his character Tom Cody, basically, inspired Cody. I believe Jessica Hagar, also her dress was modeled after Diane Lane. Pretty much how she looked in that film too. So
yeah, I'm glad I finally watched Streets of Fire not too long ago.
Oh, what'd you think of it?
Oh, it was good.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think Rick Moranis' character inspired anyone in Street Fighter, but in Final Fight. What can you do?
Secretly, he was the inspiration for Guy.
Yeah, you know what? Why not? Let's go with that.
And let's not forget, of course, Final Fight was going to be called Street Fighter 89
Street
originally.
Fighter 89. Yes, so I don't feel as bad about my faux pas there.
All right, so as far as scientific plausibility for time travel, I'm going to give this a 4. Okay, the universe is not only stranger than we can imagine, but stranger than we can imagine. So, who's to say some kind of time portal wouldn't open up somewhere? Just for what happens in the movie because of the way it all works out at the end, it's like, that's a little too convenient.
Yeah, I did say it before the show that it reminded me of a certain thing from a certain movie that's honestly still kind of newish, so I don't want to spoil it, but, I can see why you would approve of that happening.
I'll just say this.
I
don't know where we're going, but it sure as hell ain't 1939.
And if you recognize that line, I hope it all comes together. If not, I'm not going to elaborate.
Which, technically, if we were to do a later stream on time travel movies from, say, this century, we could actually include that one.
Fuck, we could. You're right. diddly do.
Bread's actually modeled on Dafoe's character.
Yeah, the suspenders that he wore. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point.
Oh, Capcom.
Yeah. I appreciate them wearing their influences on their sleeves. I should see Streets of Fire again. It feels like it's been too long.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, Snarb, are you still around?
Yeah, Snarb, if you are around, sir. Just testing, checking. If you went to bed early, then, I don't blame you. You did sound pretty tired today, but, okay, good.
Perfect, because the next movie we're going to talk about is one you pointed out at the top of the stream. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about Flight of the Navigator.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this movie right after it came out on video in the mid-'80s, and I was hooked.
This movie is incredibly Rob-core, yes.
Oh, completely. So, I can tell there's several people here who have seen this movie.
Yep. Okay. So we're all Flight of the Navigator. Okay. So I guess we won't have to explain too much about it, but like if you know, you know. This is.
But
it's top. I love it.
Here's the basic background. I'll try and keep it brief. This kid in 1978, suddenly he's gone out into the woods to find his brother and bring him home, and he slips and falls into a ravine. When he wakes up and goes back to his house, it's not 1978 anymore. It's 1986. His family's not there, and he has no idea what's going on at all.
Which is very fucking frightening for a kid to go through.
I'll say he's 12, you know?
Yeah, Jiminy.
So, anyway, the couple who lives in his house basically call the police. They take him down to the station, and they find something on him. And they show that he disappeared in 1978.
Yeah, he was considered a veritable case there.
Yeah. Missing David Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
So, they find his parents, of course, who are now older, and his little brother is now older than he is.
Yeah, that was like there's a lot that I think is pretty trippy and almost mind warping if you think about it too much for this film. Because like if well, actually no, wait, my brother has always been older than me, so but yeah.
Imagine if he was suddenly younger than you.
Fuck, man. Now I get to be the no, we have a relationship.
Now, imagine, okay, at the same time, while all this is going on, NASA is called about this apparently alien spaceship which crashed into electrical lines. And then in comes Dr. Johnny Fever.
Yep. How I forgot Howard Hesseman was in this until I looked up the cast list.
Yep. And actually, he's kind of the villain of the film, even though he's not actually a villain.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird case. Like, he does have some, like... Yeah, I would say that this is a film that works well enough without really, like, having a central villain to it, which was not unlike E.T. in that case. But, right. And I feel that was more for the better, because this is a film that really does dive into the whimsical... Again, for the better, I'd say.
Yeah. But anyway, when they're trying to find out how David hasn't aged, yeah, he's the antagonist by definition.
It's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Well, when they try to find out how he aged, they've got him hooked up to all this stuff that monitors brains and stuff. And, well, all this stuff starts coming out, like... How do they put it at one point? They've got him all hooked up with all these electrodes, and there's this doctor asking him questions about what happened the night he fell into the ravine. And all of a sudden, he starts communicating with the computer in binary code. And then he starts, when they ask, how he went somewhere, how did he get there? And the printer comes to life and starts printing out a wireframe picture of the alien spaceship. Gee. And, of course, that goes directly to NASA. And Hessman's character, he's just like, where did you get this? From the mind of a 12-year-old boy. So they take him to NASA, and there he meets a very young Sarah Jessica Parker.
That's right. Like, was this like... I'm not sure if this was like her first role ever, but was it like her first role of some visibility?
It may have been. It was very early in her career, I know that.
Cool.
And, of course, David's a bit confused by television at that point, which I find funny, just not in like, oh, that's hilarious. Oh, he doesn't know what's going on because he's been gone for 8 years. It's more of a, yeah, this is exactly how I'd feel.
Wow, TV is crap now.
At one point, he's like, hey, how come I can't find Starsky and Hutch? Are you kidding? That show went off ages ago. What's this?
Dang.
You've never seen a music video before?
I would have loved to be in the... I would love been in the 80s when MTV was just in its incipience. That actually feels like a paradise to me, but...
It was great.
Yeah.
And I will
Reagan wasn't, but I digress.
No, well, I will say that the music video that they actually had playing in the movie is a real music video by a real band.
Which one was that?
The band, I think, was called Blancmange. Or something like that.
I've heard of them. Aren't they British?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And I think
right. Weren't they like new wave?
The song was called the song was called "Lose Your Love," I think.
Okay.
If you could dig up a link to that, the video is on YouTube. You can post it in the stream.
Yeah, good point. I'm a little multitasky at the moment, but I will search in a bit.
So, anyway, again, trying to cut a long story short, the intelligence on board the ship is communicating with him telepathically. So he eventually gets on board and meets Max, otherwise known as Mike's character. Yep. And from there, they escape from NASA. Max insists that David is the navigator. And that when he crashed into the electrical towers, he lost all of his star charts and stuff. And David has them in his head, and all he has to do is a brain scan to get them out, which he does. And the problem is he picks up all sorts of other stuff from David's brain, so I sound like Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the most legitimately shocking drops, because I forget if I had looked up beforehand, but when Max does, when he first appears and is just talking a very almost robotic monotone and just being very matter of fact, I had no freaking idea that was Paul Rubens.
Nope.
Then he learns what it's like to be human, and oh wait, he is just actually literally Robot Pee-wee now.
Yep. And
honestly, I think that's a really great trop, but I was impressed at how he acted before he became familiar, so to speak, I will say.
Well, he also used a fake name in the credits.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Mall.
Paul Mall.
Yeah.
Isn't that a type of cigarette?
Yeah. I think so.
Sounds right.
If you're going to learn to swim, you just got to jump in the water. Don't forget to feed Bruiser. To all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, jelly, sesame seed bun.
Yeah, it like I said, this film just really gets whimsical, and though it takes for a while for him to show up, Max is just a adorable delight. And also all the weird things that are on the Navigator, there's some really super 80s ass practical effects that I love, and I'm like, I want all movies to look like this again. Why don't they?
Actually, it's the ship's not called the Navigator. That's David.
Oh, well, I'm stupid. I did the fucking Cowboy
Jesus, Mike, it's a Trimaxian drone ship. Get it right.
Yes, sir.
So, but yeah, all those, they're basically Muppets.
Actually,
in this case, it's acceptable.
Yeah, it doesn't feel hokey like it does in Return of the Jedi. These are some actually really fun and freaky yet oddly adorable designs.
Like the one
I'm
that
looking
eats
up
his
some...
hat.
Yes, exactly. I'm looking at some of the names. There's the Garpuntal, the Phoenostaurus, the actually, I don't have a name for. Oh, the Puckmarin. That's the little buddy that is like that's probably the most Muppet-ish one.
But he has the sad story out of the bunch too, you know, because Max says he transports all his specimens back to the time and place he got them, but he can't bring back the Puckmarin because he does not know his planet was destroyed by a comet.
Oh,
yeah,
that bites. Oh well. But
in the midst of all that whimsicalness that happens at that point, there is one part of the movie which I will dub a forgivable flaw.
What's up?
The music sequence.
Again, my memory's a little
all
rusty.
Right.
If you could,
here's what happens.
Remind.
Max wants to learn about music. They hover down next to this car full of teens. They wanted to know the directions to Fort Lauderdale or wherever. And, of course, they look back and see this alien spaceship with a kid asking them for directions. And they just floor it. But, of course, they're cranking music, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what was that noise coming out of the geek's car? And he plays back a recording of what he heard. It's like, oh, that's music. Oh. And, of course, David's like, well, you know, can you get radio signals? Oh, yes, I can. You know, and he starts basically flipping through the stations. He gets like, you know, opera or something. David's like, oh no, that's not music. Change it. And then he gets some kind of salsa thing, and of course, no, change it. And then he settles on the Beach Boys. And David's like, oh yeah, now this is music. And you know, I don't detest the Beach Boys, but I'm no fan.
Rob, you know what happened recently, right?
I am fully aware that Brian Wilson died.
Yeah, okay, just checking.
This is not a commentary on Brian Wilson. This is the Beach Boys in general. Their sound, their music. Not a fan.
Yeah, I mean, you are absolutely allowed to shit on Mike Love. The fact that he's still alive and Brian isn't is a total fluke of the universe, but, yeah.
But I've never been a fan of their music. I'm even less of a fan of their fan base. Almost as bad as Jimmy Buffett's.
Fair.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, it's like, it doesn't last very long, but it's just, you know, they start up this little disco thing going on inside with the flashing lights, and the Puckmarin's doing the John Travolta and all that, and it's like, let this end. Which
it's like,
it does.
It's like, you know, what anyone actually thinks that Kurt Cobain is better than Jerry Garcia? That's just wrong.
Don't make me say what I'm gonna say.
I'm just pissing you off. I'm just trolling you, buddy. I'm just being me.
Don't make me link to that furry comic.
No, you don't have to. I'm just being
the Grateful Dead loving rabbits. No.
God damn it! Just, I'm still baffled that exists.
So am I, actually. I mean, it's just more baffling than anything else. And the people that created it just took the opportunity to shit all over Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
As soon as they had an opportunity.
It's just so what and why?
And there's one of the biggest problems with the boomer generation besides the obvious stuff. You know?
Yeah.
It's like they never bother. If God forbid they let someone die from a generation later than theirs, and they start reminding you how much more important their idols were, and blah 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 blah.
Okay, Rob. I think we're getting a little bit off.
You started it.
Okay, fine.
All right. Anyway,
back on track. Yes.
Flight of the Navigator. Hell of a good movie. That is one of
Love
the
it.
dumbest songs I have ever heard, Sharon.
I do, Sharon. I'm not a fan, but I will keep any editorial opinions on Jimmy Buffett off the table for the stream. So,
Yes.
hope you understand.
Yep. So, Flight of the Navigator. Everyone who's seen it knows how it ends. So, human beings are too fragile for time travel. Surprise, Max. See you later, Navigator.
Yeah. Hey, not bad.
All right. Now, as far as scientific plausibility, I'm going to give this one a 10.
I mean, it is a spaceship that is actually designed for it. Like, it.
No.
I can't argue. You know what?
It's actually theory. I mean, it's like Einsteinian.
That's right. That's right.
And that's one thing Howard Hessman's character even says in the movie. It's like, time slows down as you approach the speed of light. And it's like, and while you went there and came back and stayed the same age, everyone else here on Earth aged 8 years.
Yeah. I still find that, in a way, just kind of like low-key horrifying and tragic, but, you know, David seems pretty okay by the end, all things considered, so.
Think about it, too. That was also the subject of the Queen song 39.
Oh, wow. I'm not sure if I remember that one, but it's been a while since I listened to all of Queen's albums.
That's my favorite Queen song. It's off of Night of the Opera.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And it basically tells a story about how in the year of 39, assembled here a group of volunteers that took off among the stars to find a new home to replace Earth because it's dying. And it says, yeah, in the year of 39, the travelers came back. And though I'm older, it's like they've come back and they've only aged a year, but everybody else has aged to the point where, like, the lead character in the song, his wife is dead now because he's been gone for so long from her perspective.
Oh, man.
And he meets either his son or daughter, and one of the lines is, though I'm older but a year, your mother's eyes from your eyes cry to me. So
some heavy shit, brother.
Yeah, it's a hell of a good song. You should listen to it.
I'm sure I know I have. It's just been a really long time since I've done so. But yeah, I will after this.
But yeah, definitely a 10 because that's actually possible.
Yeah. Possible within the limits of what we know we can do and what we can't, but yeah.
All right, so we're down to the last three movies we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, alrighty.
So, with that, I'm going to launch into the next one by saying that strange things are afoot at Circle K. Come on, you guys all know Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Totally awesome, dude. Mr. Bill S. Preston Esquire.
And this is Ted Theodore Logan. Together we are Wild Stallions!
Wild Stallions!
You came into... We had to do it together. Yeah, we had to do it together.
I thought I did it together. I think there's some actual lag on our call. I'm going to blame it on that.
All right, I'll blame it on that too.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, obviously that whole movie's about time travel.
Yeah, that's like the time travel-iest I think we can possibly get.
Sort of.
Well, except for the last two, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, put simply, Bill and Ted are going to change the future. They're going to, unite the world with their music.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they get separated and have to go their separate ways because they failed their history report.
Yeah, I find it just a little sidetrack. I find it how amusing, how the conflict is relatively mundane in Excellent Adventure, and I don't want to dwell on Bogus Journey too much because it's in the 90s, but wow, that one really raises the stakes, doesn't it?
That one barely involves time travel, but it does still involve it.
Yeah, to an extent. Bogus Journey is so fucking weird. But that's Adventure is that one wears its premise on its sleeve, and I love it for it.
Yeah, but Excellent Adventure, it's like, and the people in the future realize the only way they can save their history is to make sure they pass their history report. So they send George Carlin back in time to help them out.
That is the best idea ever. I think we could really learn a lot from the greatest comedic voice of the latter 20th century.
Yep.
Like, he was the smartest he was a really smart motherfucker too. But yeah.
Do you know when the Mongols invaded China? Well, why don't we go ask them? The late great George Carlin. I tell you, I have one of his routines on DVD, and I will not part with that for anything. Carlin on Campus.
Oh, really now?
Love that one.
Nice.
I'd say the Carlin cheer, but I can't do that.
You mean the 7 words, or?
Oh no,
that's not it, is it?
It's the Carlin cheer.
Oh, yeah, rat shit, bat shit, dirty old that one.
Yeah, it's the one.
Gotcha. Just checking.
Yep. He also does the full baseball versus football thing in that too, which is great.
Love it. Yeah, it's like you go in football, you go down. In baseball, you get to go home.
Yeah, I'm going home. I'm going home.
I think I took that royally out of.
Yeah, because his that's the final line in the routine, and the way he describes football in that final bit is just that got cheers from the audience, and understandably so. And then the laugh came with baseball. Yeah. But yeah, see, Prime knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. 69 blank blank tied in a knot.
And I love the little animated bits he put in there too. Like the new Olympic sport, roller fucking. But anyway, yes, George Carlin comes back to help them with their history report. So what do? They proceed to go visit Napoleon and accidentally drag him back to 1988.
Yep. And Joan of Arc. And Genghis Khan.
Oh. Hold it. Here's the thing. They originally go back just to get a few people, and then they check, and they're like, how much time we got left? Tons. All right. Extra credit, dude. That's when they go start picking up Sigmund Freud and Joan of Arc. And want a Twinkie, Genghis Khan?
My personal favorite being Socrates Johnson.
Oh, yeah. Socrates Johnson. I love the bit where Billy is hitting on those girls at the mall, and Socrates is right there with him. And all of a sudden, Sigmund Freud comes up with a corn dog. He's like, I am Dr. Freud, but you may call me Ziggy. They're like, oh my God, you are such a geek. And they leave. Nice going, egghead. And so Socrates looks at him and he's like, geek. What is a geek?
Yeah, just a...
Napoleon at the bowling alley. I mean, the water slides is great, but the bowling alley. Shit.
Being very Napoleonic there.
Hold on, buddy. He ain't paid yet. Buddy? And did you notice that after they managed to get Napoleon out of the water park and they drove off with Missy, whenever they left the two of them alone, Napoleon was like totally trying to cozy up to her.
It's a very interesting reaction, spoken or not, between the various figures of history. It's like just the what if premise of it is they really have a lot of fun with it. Oh wow!
Yes. Especially Jane Wiedlin.
Yeah, Scroll. I was about to mention both Jane Wiedlin and Al Leong. Yes.
Oh. And here's another interesting connection between movies we discussed tonight.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Jane Wiedlin was also in Star Trek 4.
What? I do not remember this.
It is a brief little cameo. But it's right near the beginning when the probe is starting to vaporize Earth's oceans, and you see the image of this female commander on the screen saying something. That's her.
The Diddlebud.
Yeah.
Huh.
She makes a great Joan of Arc, though. I love the way she just gets up on the aerobic stage and just shoves the instructor aside.
Yep.
Oh, man, that was great.
It's been a long time since I've seen Excellent Adventure, but it's just a really freaking fun film. I think there's like one dropping of the R word that I'm not going to say out loud, but other than that, it still mostly really holds up.
There's also a dropping of the F word, too. And I don't mean the F-bomb.
Yeah, I mean, again,
product of
not
its time.
Great, but for its time, it was more... I hate to say acceptable, but like it was more present. Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. Also, just interesting to see the humble beginnings here of the era of Keanu mania that just evolved.
Yeah, just think he went from that to playing in Bram Stoker's Dracula and Johnny Mnemonic, and then he did those movies about some Matrixy thing.
Yeah, and then I guess he faded for a bit, but then like John Wick happened, and then he just shot to like a tier of stardom that you barely see anymore for the most part. And
apparently he's absolutely super cool in real life.
Yeah, no, he seems like an incredibly nice guy. Mm-hmm. Like, one would maybe say that in comparison, Alex Winter got kind of a bum deal. But...
Let's not forget the bus that couldn't slow down.
That's right, there was that one. Or, I believe the movie was... It had a funny name in, like, some sort of foreign language. Like, it was known as Fart or something. I don't remember the context. Oh, yes. Farts means speed in Norwegian. So, this, apparently, I don't know if this is photoshopped or not, but I'm going to post it anyway. There you go. You're dead klar for Rushtid. Fart.
I saw this movie the other night where this bus, its speed couldn't drop below 50 miles an hour, and if its speed dropped below that, it would blow up. I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
But, yes, I was going to say that one might think that Alex Winter got a bum deal, and certainly while he didn't get to Keanu stardom, he actually had a pretty successful directing career after this film. Mm-hmm. And, Freaked. That's one that I've meant to get around to for a while, but I never did. It sounds like a pretty fucking crazy film.
Now, Snarb, I've seen the entire run of The Critic, but it's been so long I forgot that bit.
Unfortunately, yeah, I don't quite remember it either, but, since... The Critic is very up on its mid-90s filmness, as it were. I wouldn't be surprised if it did pluck at that. Speed reading. I think I remember that now. Yeah. But it's been so long again. But
You may have us, but you'll never get off the island. Oh, I beg to differ. The other Velociraptors and I are constructing a crude land bridge that'll bring us across. And when we get there, I plan to assume odd jobs in the name of Mr. Pilkington. But perhaps I've said too much.
I do remember that one. And, sorry. I know Keanu has been dunked on for a long time. I say I don't think he's inherently a bad actor. I just think he is one of those actors who is like a mold of clay that you need to work with to get the best performance out of them. Like, you have to recognize their strengths, what they play to, how to cast them, how to direct them.
Wasn't he Point Break too? Or am I thinking
that? Yes. Oh. No, he was Johnny Utah. He was the star of Point Break, yes. Opposite Patrick Swayze, yes.
Oh, let's not forget Alex Winter was in The Lost Boys.
Oh my gosh, he was. Oh, Jesus, it's been a while since I've seen that one. Do we want to talk about 80s vampire movies? Because maybe I could... Well, I'm not sure how many there are.
It's been so long since I've seen most of them, so I really have to brush up first.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you the last time I saw Fright Night.
Oh, that one's great. Yeah, no, it's been a while for me, too.
It's probably been about nearly 35 years.
I have got to get you on some more horror classics, sir.
Let me take care of the big ones that I have to watch first.
Yes, of course, definitely.
All right.
But, I really should get around to Freaked at some point. I hear it's gross in all the right ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think casting Keanu in a dramatic interpretation of Bram Stoker's Dracula as someone who couldn't even say Budapest right was the best move.
I kept expecting him to be all like, whoa.
Yeah, that was a weird one, but later on, everyone figured out how to work with him, and everybody go see John Wick. I'm just going to say that. So
that's another series I need to watch.
You really do, yes. At least I would say get around to at least the first one sometime this year if you're able to. Yeah. But anyway, we're getting off the plot here a bit.
Scientific plausibility for time travel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give Bill and Ted a 9.
It's that's probably what we give to Doctor Who also, right?
Yeah, well, in Who's case, he's, an alien Time Lord. But in this case, the time machine comes from a distant future where they could have that technology. We don't know. We're not ever going to live to see it. And, even though we already know it's not going to be influenced by the music of Bill and Ted, who knows what kind of stuff. And think about it. They had, to reference Bogus Journey for a second, they had scientists like Station.
Station!
Do you think the most brilliant scientist would be from Earth? So, yeah, I mean, who knows? So that's what I'm going to give that one.
Yeah, balls. I was going to say something else riffing on that, but now I don't remember. Something else regarding Doctor Who. Hang on. It's getting a little late. I'm having a brain fart. Sorry.
Watch Blink.
Blink, you said?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Watch that.
The Weeping Angels, right.
Yes.
Yes. I will have to sometime. You're correct. But yeah.
All right. So, I suppose we should move on to the grand finale here. Because if anyone thought we weren't going to talk about Back to the Future, then what is wrong with you?
I mean, it was the original pitch that I had for this concept. And at least 2/3 of it.
There's at least 3 references to it in the background alone.
Yeah, there's that also. I do know that if we were going to stick with this idea of Full Sail, that obviously you were going to be Doc Brown and I was going to be Marty. But...
Great Scott. Yes.
Yeah, this is heavy.
Wait, has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
All right. So, we're going to discuss them both here. Back to the Future 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. If we touch on 3 at all, it's going to be in passing because that came out in 90.
Yeah, when Rob really says the 80s, he means the 80s. I have to respect that.
Yes, I do. Anyway, if there's anyone here who actually has not seen Back to the Future, what's with you?
Hell, yeah, anyway. Even I'd slap you for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I wouldn't. That's kind of mean, but yeah.
All right. Everyone knows it's a movie that shot Michael J. Fox to superstardom. He was already a star playing Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties.
Mm-hmm.
And Christopher Lloyd, well, people knew him from all sorts of things. I think his most high-profile recurring role was Reverend Jim on Taxi at that point, although he'd been showing up in more and more movies. For example, he played Commander Cruge in Star Trek 3.
Yeah, and I think one of his earliest roles was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Danny DeVito, as it were.
Yep. Who co-starred with him on Taxi.
Yep. Oh, Sharon, you haven't? Oh, that's a bad one.
She's lying. She owns the entire trilogy. As you know, I got it for her for Christmas one year.
Okay, well, then yeah, cool.
On a side note, I love that episode of Taxi where Danny DeVito's character, who I can't think of the name of off the top of my head. Louis, yeah. Louis gets Reverend Jim hooked because, he's got a very addictive personality.
Yeah, I mean, his I mean, he's maybe blazed out on drugs every time he's on screen. So,
Well, this is something else that Louis gets him hooked on. Pac-Man.
oh my!
It's hysterical.
I have got to get on that show someday. I mean,
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm really low on sitcom knowledge in general, but that one would be pretty close to the top of the list.
Yeah, that's why he shot down my sitcom stream idea.
Yeah, because unfortunately my knowledge is awful, and it will take me a long time to catch up on the ones we're catching up on.
Oh, but don't get me wrong. We're doing at least one stream based on a sitcom sometime in the not so distant future.
Yes, next Sunday AD and Sun MSC 3K. But yes, I know what you're talking about. And,
Yes.
I'd be up for that. Yes,
We will be doing.
we'll give you a hint. It was actually alluded to earlier in the stream. in
Yes,
a
it
way.
was. Mm-hmm. Let me just say that if you ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air in Cincinnati.
Well, now you're just
WKRP.
now you're just giving away the
I got
entire
tired
bloody,
of packing and unpacking, town to town, up and down the dial. Yeah, well, you get it.
Yeah, that is actually one I did see all of at Rob's behest, and it was a great time. But I have yet to get around to the new WKRP, which
Is a mixed
apparently
bag.
is mixed bag. Not as bad as you think. Not like a total wreck out the gate, but I gather it could have been better. And then it, nice Prime, nice. You get it.
Thanks for that on-the-spot report, Les. For those of you just joining us, the Pinedale Shopping Center has just been bombed with live turkeys. Film at 11.
I remember one of my favorite recurring bits with Les was that he kept saying Kai Rodriguez instead of Chi Rodriguez.
Even after Johnny corrected him. But
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But let's not get into WKRP too much. Back to the Future. All right. Now, as everyone's seen the movie, I don't really see a point in discussing too much about the film and the sequel as well, Back to the Future Part 2, which came out near the tail end of 1989. It was one of my most anticipated movies that year, along with Ghostbusters 2 and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Nice.
And Batman and UHF.
That was a really fucking good year for movies.
Oh
Holy
my
shit.
God, yes. But perhaps we should talk about some of the hurdles it took to get there.
You mean like how, for whatever reason or another, Eric Stoltz didn't work out?
Eric Stoltz was more of a method actor.
Yeah.
And he just didn't have the comedic chemistry that they needed for Marty.
You know, I guess they need someone who is just kind of more naturally affable, which Fox is just such a charming son of a bitch.
And here's the thing about that, is that they originally wanted Michael J. Fox from Go. But they couldn't get him because of family ties.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I guess you have, haven't you, Prime? Maybe
Isn't
you're thinking about some Revenge of 1989, perhaps?
Wink.
But, yeah, so when they couldn't get Fox, they chose Eric Stoltz. And believe it or not, there's actually a couple of shots of him still in the final movie.
I've heard of that. Oh, really? Like kind of like a reverse fake Shemp almost.
In a way, but it's like, real quick, like half scenes of him. Like you see him, like his shoulder from the back, that kind of thing.
How we doodlebugged.
So, but it wasn't working out. So then they were finally able to work out a deal with the producers of Family Ties and Michael J. Fox. So basically what he would do is he would go and film Family Ties all day and then work all night on Back to the Future. He was getting like 3 hours of sleep each night.
Yeah, no, that's a hell of a rough crunch to work with, but I am at least glad the results paid off.
But going back even further, Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale had worked with Spielberg before. I'm pretty sure they wrote the script for Used Cars.
Oh yeah, that wasn't that one starring Robin Williams.
Not sure.
No,
Let me
wait.
see.
No, wait. It was starring Kurt Russell. Cadillac Man was the one with Robin Williams. I think.
Cars.
Fuck, I don't remember. God damn it. Why are there two movies about car salesmen? I think they even have similar looking covers.
Yeah, okay. He did write, Zemeckis and Gale wrote Used Cars. It was a modest success, but that wasn't the one I was thinking of that they wrote for Spielberg.
Oh. There's another movie about car salesmen?
No. What I was thinking of was 1941.
Oh yeah, was that the... That was starring John Belushi, right?
Major Wild Bill Kelso.
Wasn't that film notoriously cursed, or am I thinking of something else?
Not sure about it being cursed, but it did not do well.
There's some other movie that Belushi was like attached to that apparently had trouble getting made, and I'm not sure it ever did. And I can't remember what that is now, but I digress. Go on.
Anyway, they wrote the film. Spielberg directed it. It was a bomb.
Yeah.
And, well, ultimately there was a joke they were going to use in 1941 that they didn't, that Spielberg ended up recycling into Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Holy shit! What's that?
You remember when Toad comes in to interrogate Marion when she's with Belloc?
Oh, yeah, he pulls out what looks like some sort of garrote, but it's just a coat hanger.
That's it.
Holy... I always thought that part was morbidly hilarious. That I could see that being from something else. That's a good point.
So anyway, Gale was visiting home at one point, and he found his father's yearbooks. And he was looking through them, and he found all the stuff about his father he didn't know. And he started thinking, what would it have been like if I went to high school with my father? Would we have been friends? Would we even gotten along? And that started the wheels going. And they started cranking out this screenplay for it. But they tried to pitch it, but no one wanted to buy it.
Oh.
Spielberg showed an interest in it. But having come off a bomb that 1941 was, they didn't want to potentially wreck his reputation. But they went to every major film studio who basically looked at it and said it was cute but not raunchy enough. Because, this is the era of Fast Times and Porky's and all these other...
Teen Sex Wagers.
Right.
I think that was a Simpsons reference of some sort.
Mm-hmm. And most of these places suggested that they take the film to Disney. So they did. And Disney said they liked it, but they weren't going to do it. Because they would not make a film where a mother falls in love with her son under any circumstances.
I guess that is the thing. Oh, well, I mean, we'll get... Yeah, go on.
So, anyway, they put it on the shelf for a while. And they're like, okay, well, Zemeckis decided he was going to take the next picture that came along and direct that one. Well, as it turns out, that picture was Romancing the Stone, and it was a huge hit, and suddenly Zemeckis was hot.
Nice.
And that's when they started approaching him about Back to the Future.
Oh, yeah, the like, you do, how does it go? Like, you do the success, the guaranteed success, and then you do the personal project, and then you do the payback film because your friend says you owe him.
Exactly. Yeah, Prime, you're right about that. Family Ties was gigantic.
But was it good? Dumb question.
It was, actually. I used to watch that show every week.
I should see it sometime.
There were some genuinely very special episodes on there, too.
That weren't really hokey. They were legit.
Yeah. You know why? Because Michael J. Fox sold this stuff.
Yeah, no, he's just a tremendous actor. Like one of those guys that just oozes effortless charm. Well, not unlike Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, and it also helped the cast he was working with was also very good. And
that is true. Yes,
Meredith Baxter Birney, you had Michael Gross, and Teeny Others, and Justine Bateman, and they were all good.
Yeah, that would definitely be one to add to the sitcom bin, too, to be sure.
And guess who else starred in that show later on?
Christopher Lloyd?
No. Although he did actually put in a guest appearance on Fox's later show, Spin City.
Spin City, yes. I actually did watch that one for a while. It was a very good show.
Yeah,
crazy.
The title of the episode that Lloyd guest starred on was called Back to the Future Part 4.
Nice.
But no, the actor who showed up on Family Ties in some of its last seasons, you would probably know better as Turdley McBoing Boing.
Really? Brian Bonsall? What the
fuck? He played the youngest Keaton because the parents actually had another kid, and it was a boy. At that point, when they finally announced this boy, Fox just dropped to his knees. He goes, "Thank you, thank you." Having lived with sisters the whole time.
Oh, that's a good point. I was going to say that was that considered a shark jumping moment for its time?
I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, it was. They actually worked him in pretty well. The only thing that did happen was the sitcom trope of the suddenly aged child. He went from being a baby to like a 7-year-old in 2 seasons.
Well, dank. Hell of a growth hormone.
I'll say.
They're putting in Malk nowadays.
Yeah.
Now with vitamin R.
Exactly. So So as Zemeckis and Gale went along, they had a lot of ideas for Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in fact, the one I can think of, Prime, that worked so terribly that they had to remove him and only reference him on a milk carton at that point was on Married with Children, the character Seven.
I remember hearing something about that. Yeah, I forget the details, but...
Annoying kid they dropped in because... Bud and Kelly were older.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a terrible idea.
He was so popular with the fans that he disappeared after like 7 episodes, and then you saw a reference to him on a milk carton as a missing child. Anyway.
Isn't that what happened to Dr. Lawrence Earhart on Mystery Science Theater?
Possibly. It could, Family Matters, though. At one point, one of the actresses on the show went upstairs and never came back down.
Hey, you mean they literally went out like Chuck Cunningham?
Yeah.
That had to be a reference. That almost sounds like a direct reference.
It might have been. Anyway, they had a lot of different ideas for Back to the Future at the beginning. And it went through this whole thing. Like, originally, the time machine was going to look like a refrigerator.
It was a little too Doctor Who-y.
Yeah, they also didn't want kids locking themselves in refrigerators.
Very good point.
Doc was going to have a pet monkey instead of a dog.
I could see that.
The time machine was powered by Coca-Cola.
I wonder if that's what, if Mr. Fusion was sort of like a backport of that idea.
A little bit, considering it could definitely power the time circuits on Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
And when Marty got Back to the Future, originally it was going to be like a 1950s version of the 1980s.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah. And he was going to invent rock and roll in the future.
Like Bill and Ted, kind of.
Yeah, just not... Well, they didn't invent it, they just united the universe with it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's odd. I think... I mean, I will say, on a conceptual level, how the first Back to the Future ended is actually kind of odd and maybe a little fucked up if you think about it too hard, but the original idea there just seems a little bit like... I mean, far be it for me to call a film about time travel improbable, but yeah, that seems like a little over much.
Talking about the Coca-Cola or the 50s, 80s thing? Or
yeah. The 50s, 80s thing. It's like, I would also say that seems to be promoting boomerism in a bad way, so...
Well, luckily they changed that, so the changes just affected Marty's family and Biff.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that maybe it's, a little esoteric that, his family was very flawed, but it's are these still the same people he really knows coming back to this alternate future?
That's something you have to think about.
Yeah, that's a weird one, to say the least. I mean, they're more successful, they're more put together, but like, you know,
they're gonna be referencing stuff that he has no idea happened.
That's another good point. Yeah,
and he might inadvertently do the same thing.
But yeah, you know, thinking about it too hard, that's not something I tend to do seriously for any movies. But that was just interesting. It's just interesting how that went.
Well, imagine this. Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm going to head down to the Twin Pines Mall for a little bit. I'll be back later.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you call it the Twin Pines Mall? Lone Pine. Yeah, that's right.
That's one of my favorite little subtle bits there. That's pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. You space bastard! You killed a pine!
I have a fun little tidbit. Are you familiar with the Chessmaster series of video games?
Familiar enough to know it's chess, and I'm not a big chess fan, but Betty likes the Game Gear game.
You know, there's like that old guy on the cover. I guess he's the chess master in question. That is actually Will Hare. That's Old Man Pine as the chess master.
Old Man Peabody is the chess master?
Peabody, my bad, yes. But yes, it is. I seriously.
I can understand you calling him Old Man Pine because, you know, he had this crazy idea about breeding pine trees.
Yep.
So, but there was a ton of other things that got changed at the end, but when they shot the final movie. Surprisingly, not a lot of deleted scenes.
Oh, yeah, it is surprising.
And it's a perfect example of the set it up, pay it off school filmmaking. Because, you know, almost nothing happens in that movie that doesn't pay off later on.
That is a good point. Yes, it is like. Oh, again, it is one of those films that when I praise a film for having value, it's like one of those films where you notice something every new. What you notice something new every time that you see it, whether it's like an actual physical thing you didn't notice, or if it's like a new train of thought that you didn't have before, or whatever. It just seems fun to theorize about now. And yes, BTTF is absolutely those types of movies.
To refresh your memory, Sharon, when Marty went back to 1955, originally it crashed into the barn, and the family came out to see what was going on. You know, that part where they looked at the DeLorean sitting there, and the father's like, looks like an airplane without wings. That ain't no airplane. Yeah, Old Man Peabody is the father. He's the farmer that owns that place. And he had this crazy idea about breeding pine trees, according to Doc Brown. And then Marty, in his attempt to escape, ran over one of the pine trees.
Yep.
It's just one of my favorite bits. It's like, my pine, why you? And he blows up his own mailbox. You space bastard, you killed a pine.
Yep. Indeed, that was him. There's something I wanted to actually dwell upon just for a little bit. Go back a few minutes. Wasn't the use of the DeLorean kind of just poking fun at the fact that the DeLorean exists at all? Like it was like a very infamous machine, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's too bad we're never going to find out what happens exactly, because Doc says the stainless steel construction makes a flux dispersal, and then it gets cut off. Makes a flux dispersal what?
The riddle for the ages. But I do like how he just says, like, you know, if you're going to build a time machine, why not build it in style?
Yeah, what's interesting is that John DeLorean himself actually called up Robert Zemeckis after that and thanked him for rehabilitating his car.
I remember reading about that, yeah. Pretty cute.
So, now, of course, it all ties in with Back to the Future Part 2, though I'm not sure how many people remember the fact that the end of Back to the Future was a joke. The whole idea was that Doc was going to show up, and yeah, he'd get Jennifer and Marty, and they'd go flying into the future. But it was just their kind of tongue-in-cheek way of saying, yeah, they're going to go off and have more adventures. Ha ha ha, hope you enjoyed it. And then it became a giant hit, and people demanded a sequel, and the studio wanted a sequel. So then they had to follow up with that.
Whoopsies.
Yep, so they kind of painted themselves into a corner. They were able to actually write their way out of pretty well.
Surprisingly so, yeah. I remember that for quite a while, like, Back to the Future Part 2 was thought of as almost like a vastly inferior sequel that, like, oh, this shouldn't have been made. Oh, it's just repeating the first film again, which, you know, is
yeah, that's something I want to get into here, because if people think that the existing version of 2 repeated the original film, whether they get a load of what happened, the original plan.
What was that?
Okay, well, first they were going to go to 2015. The whole bit with the book was going to happen. Yeah, they went back to 85, found it was altered. But then they traced Biff not back to 1955, but back to 1967.
Oh?
So they went back there, and sure enough, Marty eventually runs into Lorraine and George again, and his older siblings, who were both very young at the time. And in the process, what happens is he gets involved in some kind of a peace rally or something like that, and gets arrested. And Lorraine sees him on the news and comes and bails him out. And the thing is, the money that she used to bail him out was going to be used to go on a anniversary trip with George, and that's where they were going to conceive Marty.
What the? Wow.
So Marty was going to be facing another time deadline. Like, he's got to get him to get on that train and go to their romantic getaway so he can be born.
Wow. I gotta say it, that's maybe a little stupid.
Yeah, well, that was the plan originally. And then, see, it was going to end with 2. Because what they wanted to do was have Doc power everything by flying the DeLorean into a nuclear explosion.
Jesus Christ.
In the process, they were going to lose one of the doors of the DeLorean.
Hmm.
And in the end of the film, you were going to see it in a museum. And it was going to be identified as like a piece of an alien spaceship, because it was all, like, you know, messed up by the being caught in the explosion and all that.
Huh. Alrighty.
And that's where it was going to end. Thing is, they kept writing. And they kept writing, and they kept writing, and they kept writing, and they kept writing. And then finally, they had to make a good news, bad news call to Universal.
Yep.
Well, first the bad news. They were not going to have Back to the Future Part 2 ready for a summer release in 89. The good news, they'd have it ready for the Thanksgiving season of 89, and they'd have Back to the Future Part 3 ready for the year after that. And Bob Gale said that Universal thought they were joking. They weren't. And you know, what they did with Back to the Future Part 2 in the end was ingenious, because no one had ever done that in a movie before. The whole idea of a time traveler having to step around their earlier work, as Prime just put it.
Yeah.
No one had ever done that before, to my knowledge.
It was... Oh, how do I describe it exactly? It's kind of like, No, wait, it's not really like that at all. Fuck. So I was going to mention something about RoboCop 2, but I think I'm way off, so...
RoboCop 2 is about how it's a bad idea to make RoboCop 2.
Yeah. Back to the Future Part 2 is... God damn it, I'm sorry, it's getting late in my end. I'm being useless now.
Well, if you think about it, you know, they had to go back to November 12th, 1955. It's understandable that old Biff chose that date, because it's a big date in Hill Valley's history. Sorry, Brian. So it only makes sense that he was going to pick that date. And, yeah, sure enough, that all goes down. And then, you know, of course, Doc gives him the warning about running into his other self. which he cautioned what might happen with Jennifer at the beginning of the movie when they were in 2015. You know, it's like she might see her older self and pass out, or she might cause a paradox that will destroy the entire universe. Of course, the destruction might be localized, limited to merely our own galaxy. Well, that's a relief. But just to see scenes from the first movie shot from a different perspective. And what's interesting is they actually used some bits that didn't make it into the original movie.
Oh, really now?
Mm-hmm. The scene where Strickland gets a hold of what Marty thinks is the sports almanac, and Marty goes and follows him, and he gets up to Doc Brown's Packard, and all of a sudden he hears, "Jesus, you smoke too?" And of course he just ducks down real quick, smacks into the car, and you hear inside Lorraine, she's like, "When I have kids, I'm going to let them do whatever they want," and blah, blah, blah. And Marty's like, "Yeah, I wish I could have that in writing." And the other Marty's like, "Yeah, me too." That whole bit didn't make the first movie.
Oh, it was intended for it.
Yeah.
Nice.
It actually showed up in the novelization.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. Now, to my knowledge, the novelization was written from an earlier shooting script, so there's an entire alternate beginning to that movie we never got.
Really?
Bet you didn't know that.
I don't think I did, no.
Well, there's none of that bit with the giant speaker and, the clocks being 25 minutes slow and all that. Basically, Marty's still late for school, gets detention. Strickland informs him that, yeah, you're in detention. You won't be playing that Battle of the Bands thing. So, and you actually see Marty in detention at that point.
Oh, yeah.
But earlier, the movie actually starts off with his class watching a film from the 50s about nuclear annihilation.
Oh, yeah. I would do that.
Basically, they're watching what's essentially the equivalent of the Doomtown sequence from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I'll be damned.
And something happens that causes Marty to get in trouble, and that's why he gets attention. And he comes up with this idea to get out, which is to steal a lens from the projector, and he chews a stick gum, attaches it to the back of a pack of matches, takes a rubber band, shoots the matches up to a fire alarm, and then uses the lens from the projector to focus the sunlight on the matches to light them on fire and set off the alarm. And he does it just in time. He's able to make it to the Battle of the Band audition thing, and but they didn't even have the whole hold it, fellas. I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. So yeah, there's an entire alternate opening to that movie.
That's crazy.
What's interesting is further on in the novelization, they're actually describing Marty. And I remember reading this when I was younger going, that's not what he looked like in the movie. He was wearing that the vest and the jean jacket and stuff. And then I saw pictures of Eric Stoltz dressed as Marty, and it all clicked. They were describing Eric Stoltz's wardrobe.
Crazy.
Well, as everyone knows, Back to the Future was like the #1 film of 1985. And it didn't quite rank that high. I mean, Batman kind of destroyed everything that year. It still did really well. And it got everyone hyped for Back to the Future Part 3. I know I was. Because here I'm sitting there watching the theaters with Sharon and our younger brother. And at the end, when Marty got the letter from Doc, and it's like, wait, the movie's over? And then they showed that preview for 3. And it was like, well, I know what I'm doing in May of next year.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised that it made its time deadline there and didn't really get delayed.
Well, you know why?
Because it was already shot?
Yeah. Well, not completely. What they were doing was they filmed Back to the Future Part 2 first. went immediately into filming 3. So this time Zemeckis was feeling the crunch because Fox was out of Family Ties at that point.
Yep.
And what Zemeckis would do is he'd stay up all day filming Back to the Future Part 3, and then stay up all night watching the dailies and cutting. Well, he'd watch the dailies for 3, and he would also be editing 2. And that's how they got released like 6 months apart.
Makes as much sense as any there.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems less BS than what happened with the Matrix Revolutions. But I don't know why I'm mentioning that.
I don't know why either. Probably because of Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah, maybe. I want
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted. So, yeah. But I don't see a point really in discussing anymore about Back to the Future 1 or 2 because everyone knows those movies pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And that's why this probably wouldn't have been the best stream if we had only stuck to that. So
yeah, I know there's some other stuff that got changed, some other conceptual ideas they had which got altered. Like it was originally supposed to take place in 1980, not 85. That much I know.
Ooh.
Oh, another thing, Marty was supposed to be and I'm quoting from memory here, a streetwise video pirate.
Okay.
The studio flat out refused to let them make a movie where the hero was a video pirate.
You mean like don't copy that floppy like that?
Yeah, except don't copy that VHS.
Well, I'll be damned.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. It seems like a concept for a movie that's waiting to happen still.
Well, Prime, have you ever seen any of the actual scenes with Stoltz as Marty? Because a few of them have come out.
Crazy.
Pretty sure they're on YouTube, too. Of course, Stoltz went on to be in The Mask, or whatever it was called.
Yeah, just Mask, not the Jim Carrey film.
Yeah, that's right. That was the Jim Carrey. I'm tired, too. So he was in Mask.
It is literally 1 minute to midnight where I am, and
Same
where you
here.
are too. So, yeah.
But yeah, so Stoltz had his moment in the sun as well.
To be sure, yes.
He just didn't become a mega superstar like Michael J. Fox did.
Yeah, I guess that was a better deal than Dougray Scott, or however you pronounce that.
Yeah. Also, Mobile Armored Strike Command, now we're talking.
Oh, I have unfortunately no idea what that's referring to. Sorry.
Mask.
Oh, yeah, that's that line, right.
That is so much of a very 80s toy line and cartoon series.
That's right, I remember now.
I loved that. I had several of the toys, and I watched the cartoon every day that I could.
Excellent.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could do a round table on, 80s cartoons.
Yeah, I could say some things about that, but we'd probably have to have at least Prime on, maybe someone else, and you guys would have to take point, because I think there's a lot I could really stand to bone up on there.
Young man, you need to do some serious boning.
Work that pelvis.
Also, we've if we're going to talk about the 80s cartoons, and we need to talk about some of the films that, round table for 80s cartoons. We'd also need to discuss some of the movies that spawned.
Yep, we can dare to be stupid, right?
Yes, we can, in this case.
Yep.
Yeah, we clearly... All right, Prime's down for that one. So we got Evil Dead and 80s cartoons.
All right, awesome. I can already say this, though. These will have to be for better or worse, right?
Well, we know we're going to be... I can already tell you some of the ones we'd be discussing. G.I. Joe.
I was going to say, yeah. Okay.
Transformers. Mask. Thundercats. He-Man. And Rubik, the Amazing Cube.
No, we're not. we will mention we will definitely mention that there were some really stupid ideas that came out of this era, but you know, it is what it is.
80s cartoon by Hanna-Barbera. It was an earlier Pirates. You're not thinking of Thundar the Barbarian, are you?
I was going to say, if we mention Transformers the movie, we're also going to have to talk about G.I. Joe the movie and why that one was not as good.
Yeah, mainly because they didn't have the guts to kill Dugov.
And, like, people
that's right.
by and far... I still find that funny because, like, by and far, I think most people give less of a shit about Duke than they do about Optimus Prime. I mean...
Well...
yeah, it just seemed like a bad move.
Yeah. I would like to talk about Saturday Supercade as well.
Wasn't that the... Fuck, what was that again?
That was the one with all the different segments based on video games.
That's right. That's
Hubert,
right.
Pitfall, and Frogger, and Donkey Kong.
Oh, hey, we get to talk about Captain N the Game Master.
Did that start in 89 or 90? I can't remember.
Wait, hang on. Captain N the Game Master was... It did go from 89 to 91, but I'm not sure how much you want to wax on those that were on the cusp of the 90s.
It technically would qualify.
So would TMNT, the 80s series as well there. So
not to mention Pac-Man, Pole Position, Dragon's Lair, Space Ace.
That's right. And the ones based on RoboCop and Rambo.
Let's not forget Mr. T.
That's right, he did. It was definitely the era of all that.
Brave Star and Silverhawks.
Oh yeah, no, that's more legit. Yes.
Jason the Wheeled Warriors.
What?
I knew I'd stump you on one of them.
I'm going to go ahead.
Jason the Wheeled Warriors. That was just a really neat thing, from what I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I might have to look that up. The cartoon I like more than the video game. Yeah, I bet it was easier to control, though. Centurions, yeah. And Visionaries.
What? I'm actually thinking, like, maybe I shouldn't be on this stream. I would be a lot more fascinated to watch and learn about this one than actually participate in it. I think I'd just be taking up space.
Relax, Mike. We can't possibly talk about every single cartoon I've mentioned so far.
I know, but nonetheless, it is still not an area of expertise that I'm particularly polished on. I really think you'd be doing yourself a better service by having three other guests that are really all into this era. So,
well, if you want to, then I'm sure we can do that. But you can just watch a couple episodes, just like Snarp says.
I guess.
Would we do anything on Disney? Yes, DuckTales.
Yeah, I haven't seen any episode of the original DuckTales, at least not that I remember.
Gummy bears, bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Yeah, the Schtroumpfs, the Smurfs, I suppose. Snorks too, yes, that is true.
Pound Puppies.
I might have heard of that, but I don't really know.
Care Bears.
That one I do remember, yeah. It was even parodied in Rugrats.
My Little Pony.
Yeah, the original incarnation before that somehow became a big thing in like the 2000s and 2010s.
And let's also not forget Gem and the Holograms.
Gem! She's really, truly, truly outrageous. I never seen any of that one either, but I think it became a meme for a while. So
80s Alvin and the Chipmunks.
You know, that one I actually did grow up watching, if you can believe it.
Yeah, and Prime has a point here.
Yeah? Well, I still feel like I'd be taking up space, but if I am needed, we could make it a 5-person round table.
Hey. We will enter discussions, talks into this. But I should let everyone know the next round table we're doing 2 weeks from today. we're going to be actually doing, it's not going to be a Dyer's Place, it's an actual video game roundtable. We are finally going back and doing another console-centric roundtable. Under protest from me.
Yeah, of course.
I kid. I am not against this. There are many games for this console that I like. Some, in fact, are stone cold classics.
Mm-hmm.
We will be doing the Super NES roundtable. And that is going to be on the 28th. Be there.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that.
See, you don't take up space. Yes, it will be Super NES time, and it's going to be one of the biggest roundtables we've had, because we're going to have, including myself and Mike, a total of 6 people.
Yeah, that one's going to be mega balls huge.
Yeah. The old
thank you,
Super
Sharon.
NES. The old
thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that.
Well, once we get by Konami stuff, I'm basically done.
Hey,
no. I'm gonna
appreciate it.
I'm gonna be the shooter expert on the show. So
there were a lot of good ones released for that. Maybe not as many as the TG16 or Genesis, but it's got a lot of schmuppadoo worth on there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. What you can look forward to from me is talking about quirky action games that I think deserve some further explanation. B, talking about what maybe what was I?
Mike will be discussing his secret favorite game.
I know where you're going with that. Actually, well, yeah, just say lesser known games that I think are definitely worth a damn. B, what I think is the most overrated RPG of all time, and C, RPGs I like more than what I think is the most overrated RPG of all time. Yes,
and his secret favorite game, which is called D-Force.
Dude, come on! Why you got character assassinate me like that?
Because I couldn't just bring up Chrono Trigger.
No, of course you couldn't.
Everyone already knows where you stand on that one.
Yeah, anyone who's been around me for a significant amount of time has heard my rants and ramblings about how I think Chrono Trigger is a good game, a very good game, sure, but I think it's a very solid 8.5 out of 10. I just don't believe it is a raving, throbbing, exploding 10 out of 10. Like the entire goddamn internet keeps saying over and over, you guys have mined the subject to death. There's nothing left to say. Quit talking about Chrono Trigger already. Jesus Christ. That's basically the platform that I'm standing on.
I rated
But you'll have to hear more in detail 2 weeks from now.
I rated a 4.3 overall.
What's your basis on that?
I pulled a number out of thin air.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, if I'm going to talk about any RPGs at all, we all know what that one's going to be.
The one that you actually recently beat.
That would be correct. Thanks to Jay for all the help he gave me with that, by the way.
Yeah, and by the way, did you get around to your gift yet? It's okay if you haven't, I'm just curious.
Do I want to hear people who annoy me talk about games I like? Or do you? Well,
that's a good question. Hang on. Sorry, bad water. Shit.
Yep. I will just say that since I'm the guy in charge here, the first person who calls the Super NES a SNES or, God forbid, a SNES, automatically gets booted.
Okay. That's fair. Also, Snarb, I think I did actually say that to you directly once, so, no need to find a point on it. Yes, that's why. Oh, Jesus, I got hiccups. Well, Mike's falling apart in the corner.
But hey, Prime, I did get to go ahead and get Contra Operation Galaga out of that. So
They did, yeah.
But, to be fair, I had fun with it.
Yeah, and
some of it was a slog. That was all the grinding. But still, I still like the story of the game quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you are... I can also highly recommend Final Fantasy 5 and 6.
All right, stop recommending games.
No, I'm not going to play any more RPGs ever. I'm just saying, theoretically, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will not be playing any more RPGs. I'm done. It took me 4 years to get through this one. So, no.
4 years in addition to what you played long ago before Brondley accidentally took it.
33 years ago.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I've started a new file on ActRaiser, so.
That is one I would fucking love to discuss.
Oh, yeah. ActRaiser is awesome.
ActRaiser is excellent. ActRaiser 2 is less excellent.
Much less excellent.
I did beat it in full recently, so I wouldn't mind spending a minute or so on that.
So anyway, given that we're apparently going to start the Super NES stream preemptively right now, so rather than do that, I think now would be the time for us to sign off.
Yep. And hey, Snarb's referring to the professional mode. That is, I like
the professional mode.
Yeah. I really do like that. There's the option to just play like the straight action game in there if you don't feel like you have the patience or you just don't want to do the sim bits for any reason. I usually do, but I still appreciate the options in there. And I am very disappointed ActRaiser 2 does not have as much diversity, but I digress. Yeah. Again, we will get to that 2 weeks from now. I'm hitting a second wind. I gotta shut up. Stream's over. Thank you all for coming. This was really fun.
Yep, so join us in 2 weeks when we discuss the Super NES at length.
See you then. This was a fun time, and I hope that's going to be too. But thank you all so much for tuning in to our 80s time travel stream. You all take care. Have a good night, or whatever time you have on your edge of the world.
Jay, Prime, Snarb, if you guys are up for any of these other streams we've discussed, I'll get with you on this. We'll get this going.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
So, all right, guys. Have a good one. Or, as I like to say in our videos, which we really need to do some more of, have a fun.
Enjoy.